Chapter 736. Even if a Yuanying cultivator's body was destroyed, he still had the option of ejecting his Yuanying. Although a golden core cultivator's soul could survive for a period of time after death, it didn't have the ability to escape on its own. Being decapitated meant that death was inevitable. The Yuanying cultivator's reaction was extremely fast. He waved his hand and a scarlet ball of spirit energy shot towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan used the void-piercing sword escape technique and turned into a sword to increase the distance between them. Silver light surrounded his body and turned into 36 sword shadows that shot towards the scarlet ball of spirit energy. All the sword shadows were destroyed before they could block the attack. Afterwards, he dispersed the escape technique and used the devil concealment art to hide himself again. The Yuanying cultivator spread out his divine sense to investigate the situation around him. After searching for a full 3 breaths of time, he still couldn't find any trace of Wang Daoyuan. This time he was a bit scared. A cultivator who could take his attack head-on had such a powerful concealment technique. This level of strength was enough to threaten his life. If this continued, the 2 golden core cultivators wouldn't be the only ones to die. He recalled that before he came, his superiors had ordered him to capture the Black Ice Fairy alive. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he couldn't take her life. At this time he had no choice but to be ruthless. If he let her escape, things would get out of hand. Thinking of this, his spirit energy surged. A scarlet ball of spirit energy condensed in his hands. Wang Daoyuan naturally saw that this old man wanted to kill him. He used the sword shadow divine light technique and 10 sword shadows appeared out of thin air, slashing towards the Yuanying cultivator. This person attacked with all his strength, wanting to kill the Black Ice Fairy and Uncle Zhou. Now that he was being ambushed, he had no other way to defend himself. He could only use the spell he hadn't finished charging in his hands to attack the sword shadows. 100-meter-long fire dragon engulfed the 10 sword shadows. Under the fire dragon's entanglement, the sword shadows were unable to resist and quickly turned into nothingness. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan had hidden himself again. His divine sense could not detect him. Naturally, he could not control the fire dragon to attack again. Although he could control the fire dragon to attack the Black Ice Fairy and Uncle Zhou, he did not dare to act rashly when there was an expert hiding beside him who could threaten his life. He only used the fire dragon to protect himself and shouted, "Retreat." Hearing this, the peak golden core cultivator felt as if he had been pardoned and hurriedly moved closer to him. The 2 of them flew north together. They didn't even take the corpse of the peak Oris core stage cultivator with them. Wang Daoyuan had taken action twice and both times he had taken his opponent by surprise. Now he absolutely did not dare to make a move. It wasn't until the 2 of them had flown more than 1,000 miles north that he finally let out a sigh of relief. He took the universe ring of the gold core cultivator and flew to the side of the Black Ice Fairy and Uncle Zhou. After revealing herself, the Black Ice Fairy's face was filled with joy. "Thank you, Daoyuzhou, for saving me." Wang Daoyuan said unhappily, "Uncle Zhou, you didn't handle this matter very well. We're even now and now you're dragging me down with you. Now you owe me 2 lives. Uncle Zhou had a scoundrel look on his face. "We don't have anything valuable on us. If you want compensation, you can take my life at any time. The young lady will also compensate you. You can do whatever you want with her. As long as you agree, I'll cut my own throat to apologize." This old man was really shameless. What else could he do after compensating him with the Black Ice Fairy? Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, "You're already so old. Why are you still so shameless? I came to Drifting Cloud Mountain to look for the core fragmentation grass and the nascent formation fruit. You're from the Wen clan, so you should know the specific location of these 2 spiritual items. If you don't take out these 2 spiritual items, don't blame me for being impolite." Uncle Zhou's expression was not very good. Last time when the 7 Stars Mystery Realm opened, the old master also came in. At that time he found the core fragmentation grass and the nascent formation fruit on Drifting Cloud Mountain. At that time they weren't ripe yet, so he didn't pick them. He wrote down the situation and left it for the young lady. This time the young lady and I took the risk to come here to pick the core fragmentation grass and the nascent formation fruit. However, the old master didn't find much. If he gave all of them to Dao Yu, the young lady wouldn't have any spiritual items to help her form her nascent soul. Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "I only want these things to be safe. Even without these things, I still have some confidence in forming my nascent soul. Just give me 2 core fragmentation grass and 1 nascent formation fruit. The nascent formation fruit doesn't only bear 1 fruit, right? As long as he had the nascent formation fruit, he could guarantee his safety. Even if he failed to break his core, he wouldn't lose anything. He could just find other spiritual items in the future. The most frightening thing was that he couldn't form his nascent soul after breaking his core. That would be very troublesome. Uncle Zhou nodded. I can still take out 2 core fragmentation grass and 1 nascent formation fruit. Since Daoyu needs them, I'll take them to thank Daoyu for saving my life. Dai, come with me. After saying that, he flew south with the Black Ice Fairy. Wang Daoyuan also hid his figure and followed behind. Soon Uncle Zhong stopped at the bottom of a mountain. The Black Ice Fairy took out a token. With a flash of light, a huge rock at the foot of the mountain automatically moved away. There was a cave inside. The 3 of them entered the cave and the huge rock returned to its original position. The cave was relatively narrow and could only allow 1 person to enter at a time. After walking for more than 100 feet, their eyes suddenly opened up. There was actually a small medicinal garden in the belly of the mountain. This medicinal garden was indeed too small, only 2 mu of land. However, the facilities in this medicinal garden weren't bad. There was a 5th grade high-grade spirit spring watering it, which continuously provided spiritual energy to the spiritual field. However, since no one took care of it, most of the spiritual plants withered and died. Only a dozen 5th grade high-grade spirit herbs were left. Among them, there was a small tree that was more than 3 feet tall with 3 fruits hanging on it. The shape of these fruits was exactly the same as a baby. However, these fruits were only about an inch tall. The other dozen or so spirit herbs were divided into 2 types. One type of spirit plant was dark green and its leaves were a bit like a scorpion. This was the core fragmentation grass, which was highly poisonous. In addition, there was another type of spirit plant that looked like a small withered branch. Wang Daoyuan couldn't name it. Uncle Zhong picked a nascent formation fruit, 2 core fragmentation grass, and a spirit plant that looked like a withered branch. Thank you, Daoyu Zhou, for saving us. This is our thanks to you. Wang Daoyuan didn't stand on ceremony. He took the 3 spiritual items and carefully observed them. There was nothing to see about the core fragmentation grass, so he directly put it into the space in his spiritual pearl and planted it. There was no core in the nascent formation fruit. He reached out and plucked a 3-inch long branch from the nascent formation fruit tree. I like planting spirit plants, so I'll use this as practice. Also, what kind of spirit plant is this thing that looks like a withered branch? Wang Daoyuan plucked a branch from the nascent formation fruit tree. Uncle Zhong naturally didn't have any objections. He said, "This spirit plant is called rejuvenation grass. It has always looked like this since it sprouted. When it's old enough, it will grow green leaves. When it's plucked, it'll be a holy healing medicine. Not only can it heal injuries quickly, but it can also regrow limbs even if they're missing. This function of regrowing limbs is only useful for cultivators below the Golden Core realm. Golden Core realm cultivators' bodies have improved greatly. This medicine isn't effective enough to regrow limbs for cultivators above the Golden Core realm. Please don't try it." Wang Daoyuan was very interested in the rejuvenation grass. A good healing medicine was very valuable. He put these things into the space in his spiritual pearl and planted them near the life spiritual fire. Uncle Zhong plucked the remaining 2 nascent formation fruits and left only 1 core fragmentation grass. After putting away these spirit plants, he asked Wang Daoyuan, "After leaving this secret realm, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find a suitable place to form your nascent soul. Daoyu must be thinking of breaking your core to form your nascent soul in the secret realm. Do you need us to protect you?" Wang Daoyuan smiled. "I do want to break my core to form my nascent soul in the secret realm, but there's no need to protect me. I'm already prepared." He planned to let his clone and the red-feathered crow guard him. Now that he had the core fragmentation grass and the nascent formation fruit, he didn't need to absorb 5th-level spirit power from the outside world. It wouldn't take much effort to form his nascent soul. He could go to a remote place like Jingming Lake to form his nascent soul. Of course, it wasn't impossible to form his nascent soul outside, but he still wanted to plunder the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. The secret realm opened once every 500 years. If he didn't plunder a layer of the ground, he would be letting down this opportunity. Chapter 737. After hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, the Black Ice Fairy looked disappointed. Uncle Zhong cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help, Dao. I wish Daoyu success in your nascent soul formation." Wang Daoyuan also cupped his hands and said, "Goodbye." After saying that, he turned invisible and left this place. He steered the flying warship along the edge of the mystic realm and flew towards the Jingming Lake. In the Seven Stars mystic realm, the place with the densest spiritual energy was near the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. The spiritual energy at the edge was thinner and there were fewer spiritual items. Naturally, there were not many cultivators there. Even golden core cultivators were not willing to come to this place, so Yuanying cultivators would not stay at the edge. Along the way, he only encountered a few injured peak-stage golden core cultivators. Wang Daoyuan was in a hurry, so he did not bother with them. These people naturally did not dare to find trouble with Wang Daoyuan, so both sides were at peace. It only took half a day to return to the Jingming Lake. He had already asked Dahe to check before. The spiritual plants of the highest grade in the vicinity had already been taken into the space of the spiritual pearl. There were some spiritual fish in the lake, but their grades were not high. Wang Daoyuan used the water dragon technique to drive all of them into a stream that flowed into the Jingming Lake, blocking the entrance of the stream. These spiritual fish were more than 200 miles away from the island in the center of the lake. Last time when his master formed his nascent soul, the heavenly might only covered an area of 50 miles. The range of his heavenly tribulation was slightly larger, but it should not exceed 200 miles. Then he released the soul-chasing bees and asked them to search within a radius of 20,000 miles. He also asked Yun Yi to carry Dahe around this area. Fortunately, there were no traces of cultivators in this area. Even an early-stage Yuanying cultivator would need more than 3 hours to come from 20,000 miles away. Moreover, there was not much movement during the nascent soul formation. Only the thunder tribulation could attract cultivators from 20,000 miles away. From the beginning of the thunder tribulation to the gift of heaven and earth, it would only take about 3 hours. Wang Daoyuan released his doppelganger Liao Yang Blood Demon and Scarlet Feather from the Spirit Pearl's space. Among the three of them, Liao Yang was the weakest, but he was still a third-rate Golden Core Realm cultivator. The Blood Demon had a strong physical body and could reach the level of a second-rate Golden Core. Redwing Crow's strength was even stronger. Now he had the battle prowess of a first-rate Golden Core. If a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage came to join in the fun, they would definitely die. The three of them combined definitely wouldn't be enough to deal with an early-stage Yuanying cultivator, but it wouldn't be a problem for them to stall for a while. Wang Daoyuan gave the 2 black devil robes to the 2 doppelgangers and told them to hide. In addition, he released Chen Zhaoyi and had him set up an array formation around Mirror Lake. If there really was a Yuanying coming over, they could use the array formation to delay them for a while. During this time, Wang Daoyuan was meditating beside the spirit spring on the island in the middle of the lake. After adjusting his body to its peak condition, he drank 2 jars of 100-fruit wine. It had been more than 20 years since they set off from Beiyuan, and more than 1,000 years had passed in the space of the Spirit Pearl. It was originally a 4th-grade spirit wine, and it had been stored for many years with the secret technique of the winemakers. Although it hadn't reached the 5th grade yet, the spiritual energy in it had already reached the level of an upper-grade 4th-grade spirit wine. The 2 jars of 1,000-year-old 100-fruit wine could provide a lot of spiritual energy. He drank some spirit wine in advance so that he wouldn't have insufficient spiritual energy when he formed his nascent soul. Absorbing spiritual energy from the outside world was a waste of time. Then he ate the core fragmentation herb. This herb was worthy of being an upper-grade 4th-grade poisonous herb. Its effects were really good. After eating it, it instantly turned into a stream of spiritual energy and entered his body. This stream of spiritual energy didn't harm his body. Instead, it flowed through his meridians all the way to his dantian. With the external spiritual energy, the 5-element spiritual fire instantly surrounded it, wanting to refine this ball of spiritual energy. Wang Daoyuan was still counting on this thing to break his golden core, so he naturally wouldn't let the spiritual fire destroy its medicinal properties. After suppressing the 5-element spiritual fire, this stream of spiritual energy fused into his golden core. This medicinal effect was really not simple. After fusing with his golden core, Wang Daoyuan clearly felt that his golden core was unstable. He didn't try to suppress it and directly forced the golden core out of his body. The golden core rapidly expanded. The golden core that was originally only a foot in diameter had now expanded to 5 feet in size. Then the golden core shattered into countless pieces. A purple ball with a diameter of 2 feet flew out from between Wang Daoyuan's eyebrows. This was his purple mansion. The spiritual pearl inside had already come out and was now staying in his sea of consciousness. If this living ancestor left his sea of consciousness, the spiritual energy in the entire mystic realm would be sucked dry. Since his purple mansion had already appeared, the golden core fragments quickly gathered towards it. Wang Daoyuan quickly swallowed the nascent soul fruit, and the golden core fragments gathered even faster. At this moment his purple mansion was also rapidly crumbling. The 5 elements divine beast avatar turned into a divine beast phantom and hovered near the Yuanying that was about to take shape. At this moment Wang Daoyuan released the 5 spiritual energy seeds from his dantian. Breaking the core and forming the nascent soul was like being reborn. Now that the spiritual energy seeds had fused into his body, it was like the Yuanying was born with spiritual energy seeds. They could completely fuse together without any rejection. If he didn't fuse them into his Yuanying now, they would only be external things when he fused them in the future. There was a huge difference between natural things and external things in terms of compatibility with the body. The spiritual energy seeds flew out and circled around his soul. The fist-sized spiritual energy seeds quickly shrunk to the size of a grain of rice and became extremely condensed. At this moment the nascent soul fruit that Wang Daoyuan had consumed took effect. A special white jade-colored energy flew out of his body and gathered the golden core fragments and purple mansion fragments together. Wang Daoyuan's soul controlled the spiritual energy seeds and fused them into his soul first. The 5 spiritual energy seeds corresponded to the positions of the 5 internal organs. The golden core and purple mansion fragments began to fuse into his soul. Under the effect of the nascent soul fruit, the process was very fast. It only took 5 minutes for the fusion to be completed. A 4 inches 9 centimeters tall Yuanying with a body as white as jade appeared right above Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan had always paid special attention to the balance of the 5 spiritual energy seeds, although each spiritual energy seed had its own advantages and disadvantages. But under his best efforts to balance them, their grades were always the same. Now that the spiritual energy seeds didn't reject each other, their strength wasn't exactly the same, but it didn't matter. Ordinary people had weak kidneys and other things, and their 5 internal organs couldn't be completely balanced. The subtle differences didn't affect them much. The 5 divine beasts constantly circled around the Yuanying, as if they were looking for their own position. Without the purple mansion they couldn't find their home. After circling for a while, the 5 divine beasts emitted a bright yellow light. After a few breaths of time they turned into 5 balls of bright yellow light. The 5 balls of light merged into one and a resonant dragon roar was heard. A pair of 5-colored wings sprouted from the ribs, and the shadow of a bright yellow winged dragon appeared. As expected, the 5 divine beasts had to merge into one in the end. All things returning to their origin was the right path for cultivators of the 5 elements. It seemed that his idea of modifying the life-bound magic tool was very correct. After the Yinglong circled around the Yuanying a few times, it turned into the Yinglong mark and engraved itself between the Yuanying's eyebrows. The scarlet phoenix nirvana fire stayed in the vermilion bird vision and didn't show any abnormalities. The bright yellow Yinglong mark looked pretty good. Wang Daoyuan was also relieved. He had been worried that a black tortoise mark would appear between his eyebrows. In the future it would be a bit awkward when he used the Yuanying to fight with others. After the Yinglong mark appeared between the eyebrows, the Yuanying opened his eyes. Perhaps because he had all 5 elements, the Yuanying was born with a balance of the 5 elements, and appeared to be more agile than Lei Yan's Yuanying. With a wave of his hand, the Yuanying summoned 5 5th-level lower-grade shields from the space within the spirit pearl. At this moment, a dark cloud appeared in the sky. The nearby spiritual qi also started to gather above the island in the center of the lake, and the tribulation cloud quickly expanded. There were many spirit veins in this secret realm, and the space was only so big so the spiritual qi couldn't spread everywhere. Thus the spiritual qi density was extremely high. Even in places without spirit veins, the spiritual qi density had reached the 5th level lower grade. With sufficient spiritual qi, the tribulation cloud formed faster. In just 5 minutes, the The tribulation cloud had expanded to a diameter of 500 kilometers. At this moment, the tribulation cloud was no longer expanding. With Wang Daoyuan as the center, the heavenly might descended and enveloped an area of 200 kilometers. Chapter 738. Mirror Lake was located at the eastern edge of the Seven Stars Secret Realm. It was only about 50,000 kilometers away from the center of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. The Yuanying cultivators could naturally feel the intense power of the heavenly tribulation. Several late-stage Yuanying cultivators were sitting cross-legged beside the tallest palace in the Heavenly Palace. Suddenly, a cultivator with a long beard opened his eyes. "Daoyu, there's quite a commotion in the east." An older cultivator was still resting with his eyes closed. "There's nothing strange about it. Every time the secret realm opens, there are cultivators who take the opportunity to break through to the Yuanying realm. Wasn't there a big commotion in the north before? It's most likely a genius who found a spirit item to help him form his nascent soul and found a place to form his nascent soul. By the time we get there, it'll be over. There's no need to care about it." The other Yuanying cultivators agreed and continued to meditate. The Yuanying cultivators outside of the Heavenly Palace could no longer hold back after seeing such a big commotion. The bigger the commotion caused by the Yuanying heavenly tribulation, the more bountiful the rewards would be. Even if they failed the tribulation, they could still pick up the wealth of a peak golden core cultivator. If they succeeded, they could even kill the cultivator before he woke up. The bountiful rewards of the heavens and earth would fall on them. Several Yuanying cultivators outside of the Heavenly Palace began to fly towards the tribulation clouds. Wang Daoyuan's Yuanying looked up at the tribulation clouds in the sky. Soon a green ball with a diameter of 1 foot fell from the sky. He took out a low-grade Tier 5 shield to block the lightning tribulation. The ball fell and hit the shield. A huge crack appeared on the Tier 5 low-grade shield. The shield wasn't a very powerful magic tool. It couldn't compare to the purple gold jewel pagoda, which used to be a Tier 7 spirit tool. It was normal for a mere low-grade Tier 5 shield to not be able to withstand the lightning tribulation. However, more than 90% of the lightning tribulation's power was absorbed by the shield. The remaining power caused some damage to the Yuanying cultivators, but it wasn't unbearable. The green ball turned into a green mist that filled the sky and dispersed in all directions. These spiritual items were all treasures that could promote the growth of Yuanying. How could he let it go so easily? Yuanying opened her small mouth and spat out a wisp of life spirit fire. The moment the flames came into contact with the green mist, they began to burn fiercely. Soon the green mist was completely engulfed by the flames. Yuanying opened her mouth and swallowed all the flames. After refining it for a while, the wood attribute spiritual power seed in his body completed its evolution. The current life spiritual fire had already become a rank 5 spiritual fire. Yuanying's entire body was emitting a green glow. The life force within had also become extremely rich. Wang Daoyuan used the Azure Dragon revitalization technique to heal Yuanying's injuries. Only 100 breaths of time had passed, and the green light had already been incinerated. There was a quarter of an hour between the two heavenly tribulations. There was plenty of time to heal. The green light enveloped Yuanying. 15 minutes later, her injuries were more or less healed. The second heavenly tribulation also came, and a red ball of spiritual energy fell from the sky. The power of the 5 elements' heavenly tribulations was equal. If he could withstand the first one, the second one would not be a big deal. The rank 5 shield was smashed with a huge crack by the ball of spiritual energy. There was no longer any value in repairing it. Yuanying also suffered some minor injuries. All the spiritual power in the ball of spiritual energy was refined by the Scarlet Yang primordial fire and integrated into Yuanying. The Scarlet Yang primordial fire had also successfully evolved into an inferior rank 5 spiritual fire. After absorbing so much spiritual power, Yuanying's strength had also increased. Soon the remaining 3 heavenly tribulations also fell one by one. The results were the same. The 5 element spiritual fires had all been upgraded to inferior rank 5. Yuanying's strength was also high enough. The last heavenly tribulation caused little damage to Yuanying. After the 5 heavenly tribulations, there was only one divine ability tribulation left. At this moment he was already a true Yuanying cultivator. Any bit of spiritual power could condense the power of law. He did not have to rely on small divine abilities to use a small amount of the power of law like before. The tribulation cloud in the sky did not shrink significantly. Instead it surged violently like a wave. After a quarter of an hour, a milky white ball of energy fell from the tribulation cloud. After the energy ball fell, it disappeared instantly. Wang Daoyuan felt a sense of oppression as if he had been thrown into water. He instantly understood that the divine ability tribulation had descended. The divine ability tribulation was the same as his own divine ability but much more powerful. His small divine ability was a domain type, and now it should have become a divine ability. The heavenly tribulation divine ability was naturally also a domain type. This heavenly tribulation was a test, and at the same time, it was also teaching cultivators how to use divine abilities. Wang Daoyuan also activated his divine ability at the same time to resist this sense of oppression. Then he felt the life force in Yuanying gradually dissipating into the surrounding space. Although he had never experienced the loss of life force, this feeling was not unfamiliar. It was very similar to the Tsong Dragon Pearl's accompanying spell, Tsong Dragon Life Snatching Technique. Wang Daoyuan also controlled the spiritual power within the range of the divine ability and used the Tsong Dragon Life Snatching Technique to regain the lost life force. The plants on the island in the center of the lake also began to wither. Even the aquatic plants in the lake were not spared. Within a radius of 200 miles, all the spiritual plants had their life force extracted by Wang Daoyuan. Using the divine ability to cast spells and the range of the divine ability domain were all within the range of spells. However, his divine ability and spells were still far inferior to the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation divine ability and spells were completely integrated into one. If the divine ability domain was not broken, the spells would not be broken. Wang Daoyuan was only using the two together. He was still far from fusing them into one. He constantly used the life spirit fire to replenish the loss of life force. At the same time, he constantly imitated the heavenly tribulation, trying to integrate spells and divine ability. If he could strengthen his divine ability to this extent in the future. As long as the opponent entered the range of the divine ability domain, their life force and spiritual power would be constantly lost, turning into their own power to attack the opponent. Who could win against this kind of consumption? The loss of life force could not do anything to him. Soon he felt the loss of spiritual power. This feeling was a bit like using the Gui Water Death Flame to cast the Black Tortoise Purgatory to trap the opponent. Wang Daoyuan also continued to imitate the heavenly tribulation to increase his understanding of the divine ability. The heavenly tribulation cast all the spells that he usually used. Wang Daoyuan imitated them one by one. His control and application skills of the divine ability had greatly improved. However, the following heavenly tribulation was not so gentle. 5 spiritual fires appeared from 5 directions at the same time. They were very similar to Wang Daoyuan's 5 elements spiritual fires, but with the addition of the power of the heavenly tribulation. All the spiritual power within a radius of 200 miles burned. Even the spiritual power in the Yuanying was rapidly lost, becoming fuel for the heavenly tribulation flames. The previous matches were all just for fun. Now they were getting serious. Wang Daoyuan also released the 5 elements spiritual fires, constantly competing with the heavenly tribulation flames for spiritual power. Compared to the heavenly tribulation flames, his flames were still too weak. In addition, the heavenly tribulation flames were integrated with the divine ability domain. The 5 elements spiritual fires were unable to resist and soon surrounded Wang Daoyuan. Yuanying constantly drew spiritual power from the spiritual pearl to support the spiritual fires. However, he was still defeated. All the spiritual fires were swallowed by the heavenly tribulation flames. He urged the Yinglong between his eyebrows with all his strength. This guy already had a large amount of the power of the heavenly tribulation. If he absorbed more, he should be able to withstand it. The Yinglong pattern between Yuanying's eyebrows, under the urging of Wang Daoyuan's divine sense, instantly turned into a Yinglong. This Yinglong was extremely solid and did not look like a phantom. As soon as Yinglong appeared, it desperately swallowed the heavenly tribulation flames as if it had encountered a delicacy. Wang Daoyuan also took the opportunity to control his spiritual fires to protect Yuanying. With the resources of the heavenly tribulation flames, Yinglong's aura became stronger and stronger, and its swallowing speed became faster and faster. The 5 elements' spiritual fires gradually turned the situation around, and the tribulation clouds in the sky rolled even more violently. A large amount of the power of the heavenly tribulation fell from the tribulation clouds. The heavenly tribulation flames shrank, turning into a 5-colored flame bead. Chapter 739. The fireball smashed towards Yuanying. Yuanying waved his hand and 5 intrinsic dermic artifacts flew out of his dantian and transformed into the 5 elements fiend suppression seal. In terms of offensive power, the fiend suppression seal was inferior to a tier 5 longsword. However, the fiend suppression seal had both offensive and defensive capabilities, and its defensive capabilities were not weak. Yinglong also fused into the 5 elements fiend suppression seal to resist the fireball. Then countless silver streams of light circled around his body, eventually condensing into dozens of sword shadows. These sword shadows formed a large bell. This was the fiend suppression sword bell of the Beiyuan sword manual. The golden book he obtained later had more detailed records of this dermic art, and its power was even greater. At the same time, he also used the black tortoise radiant armor, covering Yuanying with a layer of armor. The fireball smashed over, and upon contact with the 5 elements fiend suppression seal, it instantly exploded. Even with Yinglong's support, the fiend suppression seal could not withstand it and was directly scattered. Yinglong also let out a wail and flew out of his intrinsic dermic artifact. The 5-colored flames that contained the intense power of the heavenly tribulation splashed everywhere. Wang Daoyuan's fiend suppression sword bell and black tortoise radiant armor were like pieces of paper in the aftershock, instantly shattering. The aftershock of the fireball's explosion directly knocked Wang Daoyuan out. The 5-colored flames carried the power of the heavenly tribulation and enveloped Yuanying. Yinglong was a rather special existence that was derived from the Purple Mansion phenomenon. The Purple Mansion phenomenon and the divine soul were bound together for good or ill. As long as the divine soul was not destroyed, Yinglong would not be destroyed. Now that Wang Daoyuan was no longer controlling it, it began to act according to its own instincts. Its instinct was to devour the power of the heavenly tribulation. Fortunately, the flames that exploded were not all burning on Yuanying's body. After more than 100 breaths, the flames on Yuanying's body were completely devoured by Yinglong. It then went to devour the flames that were burning on other parts of the body. Because of Yinglong's help, Yuanying still had a lot of life force left. After the final attack, the power of the heavenly tribulation was exhausted, and the tribulation clouds in the sky began to turn purplish gold. At this moment, a cultivator in a golden robe flew towards the place where Wang Daoyuan was undergoing his tribulation. He was still more than 3,000 miles away from the bright mirror lake, and his face lit up with joy. Now that the gift of heaven and earth had yet to fall, he still had a chance. The tribulation cloud's transformation speed was extremely fast. In less than half a cup of tea's time, it had completely turned into a purplish gold color. Then a purple gold ball of light descended from the sky. This ball of light was only half a foot in diameter, but the power it contained was extremely shocking. The ball of light landed on Wang Daoyuan's Yuanying, and the vitality in his Yuanying rapidly increased. 200 breaths later, the golden-robed Yuanying cultivator arrived at the periphery of Bright Mirror Lake. Seeing Wang Daoyuan, he was a little surprised. At the same time, he was also a little relieved. He had fought Wang Daoyuan before. When he was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, he was already very troublesome. Now that he had broken through to the Yuanying realm, he was probably stronger than him. He could still take him down before he woke up. But if he woke up, it would be too late. Without hesitation, he waved his hand and shot out a beam of golden light towards Wang Daoyuan. At this moment, a defensive light barrier suddenly appeared and blocked the golden light. This was the defensive formation set up by Qin Zhaoyi's clone. Although it was only of the 4th grade, it was enough to stop the Yuanying cultivator for a moment. The golden-robed cultivator took out a mirror and poured a large amount of spiritual power into it. The mirror emitted a dazzling golden light, and the defensive light barrier was penetrated. The remaining golden light continued to attack Wang Daoyuan's Yuanying. At this moment, a crow's cry could be heard. Red gold flames spewed out, burning the golden light. Liao Yang's clone and Shui Yan also tried to stop it. They used all their strength and finally blocked the golden light. The golden-robed cultivator revealed an excited expression. I didn't expect there to be a golden crow. Looks like I've struck gold this time. After saying that, he turned into a beam of golden light and flew towards the island in the middle of the lake. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan had already woken up and his divine ability domain was activated. The Yuanying stretched out its small hand, and a prison formed by black flames directly trapped the golden-robed cultivator. He joked, "You're wrong. You've suffered a great loss this time." The golden-robed cultivator attacked the prison repeatedly, trying to escape. But the prison was too strong. He used all his strength but still couldn't break it. Wang Daoyuan couldn't completely fuse his spells and divine ability domain like the heavenly tribulation. But when the two worked together, it wasn't something an early-stage Yuanying cultivator without divine ability could break. Just as he was about to beg for mercy, 10 sword shadows stabbed him. After breaking through to the Yuanying realm, his understanding of the laws had improved greatly. The power of sword cultivation spells had also increased by leaps and bounds. The golden-robed cultivator took out a low-grade shield to block. But this shield was like a piece of paper under the sword shadows. A cold light flashed and the shield turned into several pieces of scrap metal and fell to the ground. Along with it, the golden-robed cultivator's head also fell. A 2-inch tall Yuanying drilled out of the body trying to escape. Unfortunately, no matter how fast the Yuanying was, it had to escape from the black tortoise purgatory. The golden-robed cultivator's Yuanying head hit the prison wall and bounced back. Wang Daoyuan controlled the prison to quickly shrink until the golden-robed cultivator's Yuanying couldn't move. Then he took it into his hands. He drew out the 5-element spiritual fire and burned the Yuanying. Begging, screaming, and cursing sounds came from the Yuanying. The spiritual fire essence was directly poured into the space of the spiritual pearl, treating it as fertilizer for the spiritual fields. At this moment, purple gold lotus flowers began to fall from the auspicious clouds. They were different from the purple gold petals of ordinary Yuanying cultivators. Wang Daoyuan also began to absorb these purple gold lotus flowers to increase the potential of the Yuanying. The flames left behind by the heavenly tribulation all dissipated. Yinglong also returned to the space between the Yuanying's eyebrows to absorb some of the gifts of heaven and earth. He also brought Dahei and Yun-Yi out of the spiritual pearl's space. It was still unknown if the two of them could advance to rank 4. The gifts of heaven and earth could increase the potential of humans and cultivators. If they absorbed some, their chances of breaking through to rank 4 in the future might be higher. The red-feathered crow didn't need to be told. It flew to the island in the center of the lake and absorbed the gifts of heaven and earth. His clone had already been put into the spiritual pearl's space. It was inevitable that the demons and fiendish cultivators would cause trouble if they openly appeared in human territory. The golden-robed cultivator's interspatial ring was also put in. The purple-gold auspicious clouds in the sky were still 200 miles in diameter. It seemed that the lotus rain would continue for a while. Under the nourishment of the gifts of heaven and earth, Wang Daoyuan's Yuanying also slowly recovered. Previously it had been burned like charcoal by the heavenly tribulation spirit fire, but now it was slowly recovering. He carefully checked the Yuanying to see if there were any important parts missing. He had to admit that the Yuanying and the physical body were really similar. Although it was a little small, it didn't lack anything. After absorbing the gifts of heaven and earth for half an hour, the Yuanying was already full and couldn't absorb any more lotus flowers. At this moment the Yuanying returned to his body and regained control. His physical body had absorbed a lot of the gifts of heaven and earth on its own, and a large amount of purple gold energy remained in his body. He began to circulate his cultivation technique and integrate the purple gold energy into his 5 internal organs to strengthen his physical body. The golden-robed cultivator's Yuanying had also been completely burned into nothingness. Another early-stage Yuanying cultivator came to the mirror lake. This person looked like a middle-aged man with a full beard. Although he wore a loose robe, it couldn't hide his sturdy body. He should be a body-tempering cultivator. When he saw the golden-robed cultivator's corpse on the shore, he angrily shouted, "Where did this thief come from? How dare he kill Taoist Master Golden Light of the 7 Stars Alliance? This bastard was also pretending to be stupid. I was transcending my tribulation here and Taoist Master Golden Light died here. What else could have happened?" However, he didn't want to offend the 7 Stars Alliance. He explained, I was breaking through my yuanying here when he suddenly rushed out and tried to kill me. He deserved to die in my hands." The brawny man glanced at the purple-gold auspicious clouds in the sky and the spirit beast that was absorbing the gifts of heaven and earth. With a greedy expression he angrily shouted, "Even if the yuanying cultivator of the Seven Stars Alliance was in the wrong, he should be punished by the deity transformation cultivators. You're a cultivator who just formed your nascent soul. What right do you have to punish him? Since you killed someone of the Seven Stars Alliance, you should pay with your life." Chapter 740. Wang Daoyuan cursed in his heart, "You talk about protecting the dignity of the Seven Stars Alliance, but in fact, you want to snatch the gift of heaven and earth and the three spirit beasts." However, his physical body had not yet advanced to the level of a yuanying cultivator, so he did not dare to let this body-tempering cultivator get close to him. He continued to circulate his cultivation technique and absorbed a large amount of spiritual energy from the outside world. After refining it and strengthening his physical body, a spiritual energy vortex with a diameter of 10 miles appeared above the island in the center of the lake. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan was ignoring him, the body-tempering cultivator was also burning with anger. He took out a heavy sword that was almost 3 meters long. With his height of 3 meters, the heavy sword in his hand did not seem too exaggerated. He threw the heavy sword with force. The heavy sword carried the strength of a yuanying body-tempering cultivator and a gust of wind as it slashed towards the island in the center of the lake. The body-tempering cultivator's strength was definitely strong among those of the same level. Wang Daoyuan naturally did not dare to be careless. He activated his divine ability again and held a low-grade Tier 5 longsword in his hand. Silver sword chi surrounded his body and finally gathered on the longsword. The silver demon slaying sword was instantly formed. The heavy sword flew over and Wang Daoyuan swung the longsword in his hand. Boom! With a loud sound, Wang Daoyuan's demon slaying sword dimmed, and the body-tempering cultivator's heavy sword also flew back. Waves of air spread out in all directions, and ripples appeared on the surface of the lake under the influence of the air waves. The body-tempering cultivator caught the heavy sword and was forced to take a few steps back from the impact. After dispersing the demon-slaying sword, Wang Daoyuan controlled the sword chi and condensed it into sword shadows. Soon, 36 sword shadows were condensed and attacked the body-tempering cultivator at an extremely fast speed. Most body-tempering cultivators were not known for their speed. They could not dodge the sword shadows and were quickly surrounded. Wang Daoyuan took the opportunity to use the sky-sealing sword prison. The 36 sword shadows released countless sword chi and surrounded the body-tempering cultivator. This fellow was not weak. The golden spiritual energy on his body surged and formed a protective chi barrier. The sword chi slashed on his body, but they were all blocked by the protective chi barrier. Then he suddenly swung the heavy sword in his hand. Kacha! More than 20 sword shadows were severed by this sword, and the heaven-sealing sword prison was directly broken. Wang Daoyuan controlled the remaining sword shadows and slashed at him. His protective aura was broken, and the remaining sword shadows left several deep wounds on his body, so deep that his bones could be seen. Wang Daoyuan sighed in his heart. This heavenly dipper sword formation was still not perfect enough. If the sword shadows weren't strong enough, it would be easy for him to be forced to execute the sky-sealing sword prison. The body-tempering cultivator's face was gloomy. He originally wanted to take advantage of the situation, but he didn't expect that it would be a tough nut to crack. He had just broken through the yuanying realm and was already stronger than him. If this continued, he would lose his life here. He was also extremely decisive. He turned around and flew away from this place. At this moment, the gift of heaven and earth had not yet ended, so Wang Daoyuan did not have the time to chase after him. He took out a jar of 100 fruit wine and drank it in one gulp. He circulated the true dragon body tempering art to strengthen his physical body. The battle between Wang Daoyuan and the body-tempering cultivator was too loud, and the cultivators who came to join in the fun naturally noticed it. The gift of heaven and earth had already lasted for about 15 minutes, and under normal circumstances there was not much left. The person who could chase away a body-tempering cultivator's yuanying was naturally not weak. If they came to cause trouble again, they would not be able to reap much benefits and might even lose their lives. Those who could cultivate to the yuanying realm were not fools. Who would risk their lives for such a small profit? With no one disturbing him, Wang Daoyuan was also happy with the peace and quiet. There was a sea of spiritual energy and the gift of heaven and earth here. There was also a faint dragon qi in the spirit spring. This was the most suitable place to cultivate the true dragon body tempering art. In just 15 minutes his physical body was already full and could not absorb any more spiritual energy. He punched the rock on the ground. With his fist as the center, cracks spread in all directions like a spider web. The remaining power of the heavenly tribulation only caused some cracks to appear on the rocks here, but his punch could actually cause a large piece of rock to collapse. With just the strength of his physical body, it should not be a problem to kill an ordinary early-stage Yuanying cultivator. Unfortunately, there were no Yuanying cultivators coming to die now. He had a body full of power, but there was nowhere to use it. The auspicious clouds in the sky had not dissipated, and there were still about 100 kilometers in diameter. From the looks of it, the gift of heaven and earth would continue for a while. Wang Daoyuan's physical body and Yuanying were already full. Only the yin-long mark between Yuanying's eyebrows was like a bottomless pit, constantly devouring the purple gold energy. He continued to absorb the gift of heaven and earth and infused it into the yin-long mark. Most of his techniques were related to the 5 elements divine beast. As the yin-long mark grew, his strength would also improve. There were simply too many gifts of heaven and earth. The yin-long mark's absorption speed could not keep up. Wang Daoyuan did not want to take advantage of this mystic realm for nothing, so he directly infused the gift of heaven and earth into the space of the spirit pearl. The gift of heaven and earth lasted for another hour. The purple gold auspicious clouds became extremely thin and then slowly dissipated. The entire space of the spirit pearl was enshrouded in a layer of purple gold fog. The spirit meridians had already reached the limit of superior grade stage 4. Now that there was a huge amount of gifts of heaven and earth, it was naturally not a problem for them to upgrade. The 5 spirit meridians had already reached inferior grade stage 5. The spirit energy they produced contained the power of laws. The wood attribute and water attribute spirit meridians originally contained some dragon qi. After the spirit meridians upgraded, the dragon qi became even denser. Although it was not as good as the Jade Spring Peak, it was about the same as the Spirit Spring in front of him. It was more than enough to cultivate the true dragon body tempering technique. In the whole of Beiyuan Zhou Xian he already had 5 stage 5 spirit meridians that could only be found by chance. The nascent formation fruit, core fragmentation grass, and rejuvenation grass that he had obtained previously had also grown. It was not impossible for him to return to Beiyuan Zhou Xian now. However, after drifting on the sea for decades, it was not easy for him to reach the Sea of 7 Stars. He felt that it would be a loss for him to return like this. The area of the spirit field in the space had also increased. Now it had reached 100 mu. The flow of time had also increased to about 65 times. It had just produced stage 5 spirit energy, and the spirit plants in the space had not had time to upgrade yet. However, the spirit fire in the space made Wang Daoyuan feel a little surprised. Logically speaking, the spirit fire's upgrade speed should be much faster than the spirit meridians. After all, it was composed of pure spirit energy. As long as it could absorb enough spirit energy, it would be able to upgrade very quickly. However, except for the life spirit fire that grew on the spirit peach tree that had advanced to inferior grade stage 5, the other spirit fires were still at superior grade stage 4. The red sun true fire was still okay. Its spirit energy fluctuations showed some signs of increasing. It seemed that it would be able to upgrade very soon. The other 3 spirit fires showed no signs of upgrading at all. Wang Daoyuan carefully examined the 5 spirit fires to see where the problem was. At the Yuanying realm, the soul had undergone a huge change again. The perception ability of the divine sense had increased by a large level. After careful examination, he really found some differences. In addition to spirit energy, there was also a special kind of energy in the fire seeds of these spirit fires. Wang Daoyuan had seen many special kinds of energy. The power of heavenly tribulation, the gift of heaven and earth, purple qi, the power of the stars, and the large amount of grayish-purple energy in the spirit bead. However, the special energy in the spirit fires was obviously different from those. The amount of this special energy was different in these 5 spirit fires. The life spirit fire had the most, followed by the red sun true fire. The other 3 spirit fires were even less. He examined the spirit energy seed in the Yuanying again and found that there was also a special energy in it. It was much more than in the space spirit fire. Wang Daoyuan guessed that this special energy should be related to the formation of the spirit fires. After all, the spirit fires in the space were cultivated by pseudo-spirit fires. It was normal for there to be less of this special energy. Perhaps it was because there was too little of this energy that limited the growth of the spirit fires. There was a clear difference in the amount of special energy in the 5 spirit fires in the space of the spirit bead. This was also very easy to understand. The life spirit fire originally came from the spirit peach tree. It had been growing on the spirit peach tree and received the nourishment of the spirit peach tree. Naturally, it could continue to obtain this special energy. The red sun true fire came from the red feather crow, which happened to be in the space. The red sun true fire could more or less obtain a little special energy from the red feather crow. The other 3 spirit fires had nowhere to replenish it, so they had the least. Chapter 741. Wang Daoyuan was a little disappointed that the seed fire's growth was limited. On second thought, it was normal for there to be a limit. If he could infinitely separate the pseudo-spiritual fire and cultivate it into spiritual fire, wouldn't the entire cultivation world be flooded with spiritual fire? If he separated the pseudo-spiritual fire from the spiritual fire, he would also lose a part of the fire seed. There was also a special energy that would damage the spiritual fire. It seemed that he could not casually divide the pseudo-spiritual fire in the future. Otherwise, it would affect the spiritual fire's growth limit. As for the spiritual fire in the spiritual pearl, he still had to find a way to make up for the special energy. Otherwise, if the spiritual fire did not evolve in the future, it might affect the growth of the spiritual pearl's space. After the gift of heaven and earth ended, he put the red-feathered crow Dahei and Yun-Yi into the spiritual pearl's space. Just as he was about to leave, a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator appeared by the lake. He cupped his hands at Wang Daoyuan and said, "Daoyu caused such a big commotion when you broke through to the Yuanying realm. The gift of heaven and earth lasted for 2 hours. You can easily kill Yuanying cultivators when you just formed your nascent soul. You are also a talented person. I would like to invite Daoyu to join the blood shark. I am Huang He and I can still say a few words in the blood shark. As long as Daoyu can join, all kinds of Yuanying cultivation techniques, the guidance of veteran Yuanying cultivators, and the resources needed by Yuanying cultivators will all be available. With Daoyu's means, if he can join the blood shark, he will definitely become a branch leader. If his cultivation improves greatly in the future, it won't be a problem for him to enter the headquarters and receive guidance from a soul formation senior." Blood Shark was trying to recruit people, but it was normal. Blood Shark was hostile to the 7 Stars Alliance and did not occupy a relatively large island. In terms of resources, the many small islands might not be inferior to the large islands. However, the large islands had a great advantage, and that was that they could accommodate more mortals. Cultivators could live with a spirit vein, but mortals needed a lot of land to grow food. On a small island, this could not be satisfied at all. Therefore, the number of mortals controlled by Blood Shark was far less than that of the 7 Stars Alliance. Mortals were the foundation of immortal cultivators. Only when there were enough mortals could more immortal cultivators be nurtured. Blood Shark could never be compared to the 7 Stars Alliance in terms of the number of cultivators. If he wanted to make up for the lack of cultivators, he could only rope and rogue cultivators. Most golden core cultivators would not be spared, let alone a talented Yuanying cultivator like Wang Daoyuan. After arriving at Xianxia Zhou Xian community, Wang Daoyuan wanted to obtain the complete doppelganger soul nurturing technique. However, joining Blood Shark was probably out of the question. The doppelganger soul nurturing technique was the core legacy of the Imperial Regency. How could he let an unaffiliated cultivator learn it so easily? If he couldn't get what he wanted, he would be controlled by the Blood Shark. Only someone who had nothing better to do would dare to do such a thing. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Daoyu. I don't like restrictions, so I've never joined any forces. Blood Shark is also a big force, so there must be many rules in all aspects. I can't stand this. No matter how many resources there are, I'm not willing to be controlled." Hearing this, Huang He's expression did not look too good. If he could rope in a Yuanying cultivator with a bright future, he could also get a lot of rewards. He laughed and said, "Daoyu should think carefully. Rogue cultivators in the Sea of 7 Stars don't have good lives. The resources that Yuanying cultivators need are divided between Blood Shark and the 7 Stars Alliance. Moreover, they are not sold to the outside world. He looked at the corpse on the ground and said, "You killed Reverend Golden Light of the Seven Stars Alliance and chased away Reverend Iron Sword of the Tianshu sect. After you leave, the Seven Stars Alliance will definitely put you on the wanted list. If you don't join the Blood Shark, I'm afraid Dao you won't have a place in the Sea of Seven Stars." Wang Daoyuan laughed and said, "It's fine. I'll just go to the Outer Sea and kill fifth-rank demonic beast. If I can't stay in the Sea of Seven Stars, I'll go to the Myriad Devil Islands. The Seven Stars Alliance's wanted list can't be sent to the Myriad Devil Islands, right? You would rather go to the Myriad Devil Islands than join the Blood Shark." This was a dead end. Huang He stopped trying to persuade him and said, "Then I wish Dao you a bright future. If you ever think it through, you can still turn back. Our Blood Shark's door is always open to Dao you." After saying this, he flew away from Jingming Lake. Jingming Lake had already attracted the attention of many parties. If he continued to stay here, he would be moving under the noses of others. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to leave, a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator wearing an ice-blue robe walked to Jingming Lake. He smiled at the island in the middle of the lake and said, "Dao, I'm Wen Tong, a member of the Wen clan on Mystic Island. With Daoyu's talent, it's a waste of his talent to be a rogue cultivator. Blood Shark is also petty. They only offered the position of a branch leader to Daoyu when they wanted to recruit him. If he's willing to come to Mystic Island, he can easily become a guest elder. The women of the Wen clan are famous for their beauty. As long as Daoyu is willing to marry into our family, it won't be a problem for him to become an elder." Wang Daoyuan was speechless. The Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark were all mixed up. There were rich and poor people. It was reasonable for Yuanying cultivators with weaker families to wander outside looking for opportunities. The Wen clan was an independent force. This person's surname was Wen, and he wasn't a cultivator from a subsidiary force. Even in a spirit-severing realm force, Yuanying cultivators were the main force and their status wasn't low. Why would a mid-level cultivator from such a large force wander outside? The Wen clan was also a large force. Wang Daoyuan couldn't easily offend them. He cupped his hands and said, "When Daoyu overpraises me, my talent is average. Blood Shark is already thinking highly of me by giving me the position of a branch leader. However, I've never joined any force since I started cultivating. I'm used to being a wild crane and don't like restrictions. I appreciate Wen Daoyu's good intentions." This Wen Tong was easy to talk to. He didn't force Wang Daoyuan to accept. He only smiled and said, "Daoyu naturally has your difficulties. I won't force you. If you encounter any difficulties, you don't have to go to Myriad Demon Island. Come to Mystic Ice Island. My Wen clan will treat you like an important guest." After he finished speaking, he left the place. Wang Daoyuan understood the meaning of these two forces. The Seven Stars Alliance was the dominant force. Now that there was a rogue cultivator with a bright future, the other forces naturally wanted to rope him in. Even if they couldn't get him, they would sell him in advance so that he wouldn't join the Seven Stars Alliance. After sending the two away, Wang Daoyuan put on the black demon robe and used the concealment devil art to leave. Including today, he had only been in the Seven Stars Secret Realm for 12 days. There were 18 days before the Seven Stars Secret Realm closed. He didn't need to rush to the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. Otherwise, if he caused trouble, he would be surrounded by the late Yuanying cultivators sent by the large forces. The cultivators sent out to be Dao protectors were definitely not weak. With Wang Daoyuan's ability, he didn't have the confidence to face several late Yuanying cultivators. When the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace closed, all the cultivators would be forcefully teleported out. The location of the teleportation was uncertain. It was within 300,000 miles of hidden Yuan Island. In the last few days, he would enter the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. With the spiritual pearls space, he could obtain some spirit herb sprouts. The Seven Stars Heavenly Palace was the common herb garden of the large forces. They directed the harvesting of mature spirit herbs. There wasn't much difference whether he went early or late. Even if he was discovered by the Yuanying cultivators, he could hide for a few days and wait for the secret realm to close before being teleported outside. After leaving Mirror Lake, he headed north. More than 20,000 miles north, there was a mountain range called Qingmong Mountain. There was a level 5 high-grade wood spirit vein on the mountain. The nearby vegetation was lush and there were many records of level 5 spirit herbs. When a cultivator reached the Yuanying realm, every increase in their cultivation required a huge amount of spirit power and quintessential essence. Even cultivators with heavenly spirit roots couldn't cultivate too quickly. It would take at least 100 or 200 years to cultivate from the early Yuanying stage to the middle Yuanying stage. Wang Daoyuan had a spirit power seed, so his cultivation speed was faster than most heavenly spirit roots. However, if he wanted to cultivate to the middle Yuanying stage, he would need dozens or even hundreds of years. Therefore, pills to assist in cultivation were indispensable. The most common pill used by Yuanying cultivators was the nascent cultivating pill. A single nascent cultivating pill could save an ordinary cultivator several years of hard work. There was also the 9 Deaths Resurrection pill, which could only be used by cultivators at the Yuanying stage and above. The rejuvenation grass he obtained previously was one of the main ingredients of the 9 Deaths Resurrection pill. Chapter 742. Wang Daoyuan flew all the way to the north, and his doppelganger in the space was not idle either. Previously he had killed a peak golden core cultivator and Reverend Golden Light. Their universe rings were kept in the space of the spirit pearl. In the ring of the peak golden core cultivator he found a token of the Divine Pill sect. He should be a disciple of the Divine Pill sect of the Seven Stars Alliance. There were also some spiritual herbs in the universe ring. Among them there were 3 stalks of core fragmentation grass, 2 stalks of rejuvenation grass, and a spirit condensation fruit. The spirit condensation fruit was an auxiliary ingredient of the nascent cultivating pill. The fruit was already ripe and there was a seed in it. It could be planted in the space of the spirit pearl. The other elixirs, dharma artifacts and the like were all of the 4th grade. Wang Daoyuan had already broken through to the Yuanying realm. These things were of no use to him, so he threw them in the hut. There were still some good things in Reverend Golden Light's universe ring. The mirror that could emit golden light was not bad, but it was a natal dharma artifact. After the death of its owner, its power would be greatly reduced. It was also an unorthodox dharma artifact. There was no need to refine it into a legendary dharma artifact. However, it was still a 5th grade dharma artifact and its material was not bad. He could keep it and use it as a dressing mirror for Zhou Xian in the future. Reverend Golden Light had robbed many golden core cultivators, and there were still a few 4th grade dharma artifacts in the universe ring. When Wang Daoyuan encountered him, the flying boat was broken. The core of the flying boat and the spiritual power conversion device were also kept by him. If he sold this item he could earn nearly 10 million spirit stones. Now that he had taken it back, his doppelganger could refine a new flying boat. Could save a lot of effort. He only needed to refine the outer shell. There were no other 5th grade dharma artifacts in the universe ring. If there were, he would not have robbed golden core cultivators. There were also some 5th grade elixirs, all of which were auxiliary ingredients of the nascent cultivating pill. The most valuable item was a 6th grade refining material, dazzling sun gold. It was a refining material produced by the Golden Sun Mountain. It was a metal material, but it contained an extremely rich yang qi. When refining a dharma artifact it could be added, giving the dharma artifact a rich yang qi. It was extremely lethal to evil and demonic cultivators. In addition, there was also a jade pill bottle with 3 nascent cultivating pills inside. Wang Daoyuan could not use it for the time being. The 5 spirits immortal art did not have a cultivation technique for the Yuanying period, so he could not increase his cultivation level. Once he was done with the 7-star mystic realm he would need to find a secluded place. Combining the techniques he had obtained before, he deduced the Yuanying technique of the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique. Without 8 to 10 years of time, this matter wouldn't be able to cause much of a stir. Right now he had to do his best to search for some tier 5 spirit herbs. The more he gathered, the fewer things he would need to gather to enter the 7 stars heavenly palace. Thus they wouldn't need to take too many risks to reduce the risk of being discovered. After reaching the Yuanying stage, the amount of spiritual energy in one's body would greatly increase. Flying over 20,000 miles in one go was not a big deal. In merely 3 hours they arrived at Qingmeng Mountain. This mountain range was not small. It was more than 6,000 miles long from east to west, and more than 2,000 miles wide from north to south. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan had delayed for more than 10 days in order to break through to the Yuanying stage. Those golden core cultivators did not dare to enter the 7 stars heavenly palace, nor did they dare to compete with the Yuanying cultivators on the Tier 6 spirit vein. They could only set their eyes on the Tier 5 spirit vein. There were even more cultivators near a wood spirit vein like Qingmong Mountain, which was lush with vegetation and many spirit herbs. These people were really poor. He searched for a long time, but there was not a single Tier 4 spirit herb left on the entire Qingmong Mountain. Helpless, he could only leave Qingmong Mountain and search elsewhere. Then he found another rank 6 spirit vein and plundered it clean. There was no point in searching for other spirit veins. He simply found a Tier 5 spirit vein at the edge of the area and repaired his natal Dharma artifact. Previously, when he was transcending the tribulation, the demon vanquishing seal was scattered by the last strike of the tribulation. Every Dharma artifact suffered different degrees of damage. If he did not repair it, his combat power would be affected. As for upgrading them to Tier 5, it was not possible in a short period of time. Even if the spirit energy contained in the Dharma artifact reached the level of Tier 5, the tool pattern was still at Tier 4. Perfected Demon Vanquishing Master was only a peak golden core cultivator in his later years. In the refinement method of the 5 elements Demon Vanquishing Seal, there was only a Tier 4 tool pattern. If he wanted to upgrade his natal Dharma artifact to Tier 5, he would have to deduce the tool pattern himself. Breaking through to the Yuanying stage left a lot to do. He could not continue to improve his cultivation, and his physical body and Yuanying had reached a saturated state. The only thing he could do now was to repair the original tool pattern, which could more or less increase his combat power. Over the years, his natal Dharma artifact had absorbed a large amount of spirit energy and was extremely strong. Although the heavenly tribulation had scattered the 5 elements Demon Vanquishing Seal, it did not cause too much damage. He released his clone to stand guard outside while Yuanying entered the space of the Spirit Pearl to repair the Dharma artifacts. Yuanying cultivators' souls, spirit energy and blood were fused as one and could leave their bodies for a longer period of time. With the help of the 60 times faster flow of time in the space of the Spirit Pearl, the speed of deduction of cultivation techniques, alchemy and weapon refinement would be greatly increased. It was a pity that Yuanying could not be cultivated outside the body. Otherwise, if Yuanying cultivated in the space of the Spirit Pearl, he would be able to cultivate to the peak of Yuanying within 10 years. There were still more than 10 days before the mystic realm closed. If he left a few days to explore the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace, he would still have 10 days left. That would be more than 600 days in the space of the Spirit Pearl. Yuanying was in the thatched hut in the space of the Spirit Pearl, repairing the tool patterns on the 5 Dharma artifacts. 10 days passed quickly and the damaged Dharma artifacts were all repaired. There were less than 5 days before the mystic realm closed. It was time to explore the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. After taking back the core of the flying boat and the spirit energy conversion device from perfected golden light, his clones refined a Tier 4 medium-grade flying boat. Wang Daoyuan rode the flying boat and flew towards the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. When he was about 10,000 miles east of the palace, he kept the flying boat, hid his body and slowly approached the palace. 2 hours later, he arrived near the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace. The 7 Stars Heavenly Palace was about 200 square miles. It was surrounded by a wall that was more than 30 meters high. There was a gate on all 4 sides of the palace. According to the beast skin book given by Uncle Zhong, the palace was protected by an array formation. Except for the first few times, every time the mystic realm opened, the array formation of the entire palace would be broken. The next time the mystic realm opened, the array formation would automatically repair itself. There was another important task for the late Yuanying cultivators sent in by the big sects, which was to break the array formation. Now the defensive array of the palace had already been broken. However, there seemed to be a forbidden space array inside that prevented people from flying over. At every gate of the palace, there were Yuanying cultivators sent by the big sects to guard it. Wang Daoyuan did not want to provoke them. Even if he did not go through the gate, he could still go through the palace walls. The forbidden space array not only made all flying spells ineffective, it also had the effect of increasing gravity. Normal cultivators would not be able to go up the walls within the range of the forbidden space array. Even if they went up, they would cause quite a commotion and would easily alert the cultivators on guard duty. Wang Daoyuan was a body-tempering cultivator who had reached the Yuanying realm. How could he be stopped by a palace wall? He came to a place about 30 kilometers south of the east gate and jumped onto the palace wall. Looking up from the palace wall, he saw that the array formation inside the palace had not been completely broken. There was a small group of palaces in the middle that was protected by a defensive light shield. The defensive light shield was extremely strong and far exceeded the strength of the Yuanian cultivators. This should be the school of the Emperor Star. It was the only place in the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace that had not been explored. The soul formation cultivators sent by the big sects could not break through the school of the Emperor Star's defensive array. Now the cultivators of the big sects did not see the school of the Emperor Star and pretended that it did not exist. Many of the surrounding buildings also had intact formations. They were probably empty buildings that the big sects had taken away. There was no longer any value in continuing to explore. The beast skin book that Uncle Zhong had given him did not describe the situation inside the palace in detail. After entering the palace, there was nothing to refer to. After going down the palace wall, Wang Daoyuan walked straight to the places without the protection of the array formation. The only valuable things in the heavenly palace were the spiritual fields. The places without the protection of the array formation had probably been broken by the cultivators of the big sections. These places were very likely to have spirit fields. The surrounding palaces were magnificent. They did not look like places where cultivators lived. Instead, they looked more like the imperial palaces of the mortal world. After passing through a few small palaces protected by arrays, a small river appeared in front of him. The river water was so clear that he could see the bottom. It contained extremely rich spiritual power that had surpassed level 5. The river water was still flowing. After passing through a winding river, it finally flowed to the north of the palaces. Previously, he had seen a small lake with a diameter of about 5 kilometers in the north of the palaces. There were many spirit plants planted around the lake. It was a good opportunity to explore. Following the river, he walked downstream and soon arrived at the lakeside. At the place where the river flowed into the lake, there was a stone tablet with the words Xuanwu Lake written in ancient characters. The shape of the lake was roughly circular. In the center of the lake was a small island with a diameter of about 2,000 feet. This island looked like a huge turtle. On the turtle's back was a small piece of spirit field. There were many level 5 high-grade spirit plants planted in this spirit field. 2 days ago there was a late-stage Yuanian cultivator meditating next to it. If he wanted to pick spirit plants right under his nose, he would definitely be discovered. With his current strength, he was not a match for a late-stage Yuanian cultivator. He could only search for the spirit plants he needed in the spirit field by the lake. Even though the lake was only about 5 kilometers away from the center, he still had to be careful. Wang Daoyuan did not dare to release his divine sense. He only used his eyes to identify the spirit plants. After spending half a day, he finally walked around the small lake. There was a rich variety of spirit plants in these spirit fields. They were all level 5 spirit plants. He wanted nothing more than to put all of these spirit plants into the space of the spirit pearl. However, he did not dare to go too far in front of a late-stage Yuanian cultivator. He did not dare to touch many of the spirit plants whose uses he did not know. He only tried his best to find the raw materials for the 9 Death Soul Return Pill and the Nascent Cultivating Pill. However, his harvest was not small. He had collected most of the spirit plants for the 9 Death Soul Return Pill and the Nascent Cultivating Pill. The 2 pills each lacked a main ingredient. The 9 Death Soul Return Pill still lacked the Soul Return Grass and the Nascent Cultivating Pill still lacked the Jade Dew Flower. There was no such thing in the spirit field by the lake. Wang Daoyuan did not stay here any longer. He followed the river upstream and went to other palaces that might have spirit fields to look for the whereabouts of the pills. Half a day later, he arrived at the side of a courtyard. In the north of the courtyard, there was a palace-like building that was not very tall. On the plaque on the door of the hall, there were 3 big words, Shinnong Pavilion. Voices came from the palace. A young cultivator asked, "Senior Marshal Brother Zhang, this divine farmer pavilion was the place where the inheritance of the spirit plant farmer was placed. Legend has it that the first group of cultivators who entered this place found a rank 7 spirit plant here. There is also the inheritance of a rank 7 spirit plant farmer in the palace. I wonder whose hands these things fell into." Then a middle-aged man's voice came out. "There is indeed such a thing. In the past, More than 10 deity transformation cultivators of the Xianxia community broke the defensive formation of the heavenly palace. After that they all dispersed. At that time, the first person to come to this divine farmer pavilion was the sect master of the imperial regency. He broke the formation of the divine farmer pavilion. At that time, there was a soul cultivation wood that had grown for an unknown number of years in the courtyard. This soul cultivation wood could not only heal the damage to the soul of cultivators, but also gradually strengthen the cultivation of the divine sense when wearing magic tools refined from the soul cultivation wood. At that time, the imperial regency was only a second-rate force in the Xianxia community. Moreover, it was the kind that was not very eye-catching. After obtaining this soul cultivation wood, it only took 2,000 years to grow into a first-rate force. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was also very interested. He had naturally heard of the famous soul cultivation wood. Its effect was just as the middle-aged cultivator said. The imperial regency had obtained the soul cultivation wood in the Thousand Corpse Spiritual Master's Sea observation record. Although his status was low at that time, he was still a disciple of the imperial regency. He still knew a little about the glorious history of his sect. The earliest core inheritance of the imperial regency was beast taming. In order to make spirit beasts submit, the requirements for the power of the divine sense were extremely high. After the imperial regency obtained the soul cultivation wood, the divine sense of the disciples naturally improved by leaps and bounds. The stronger the divine sense, the stronger the spirit beasts that could be controlled. The imperial regency rose because of this. Later they obtained the soul-devouring soul cultivation technique and improved the doppelganger soul cultivation technique. Together with the soul cultivation wood, the imperial regency dominated the Xianxia community for tens of thousands of years. After the major forces of the Seven Stars Alliance destroyed the imperial regency, they did not find any trace of the soul cultivation wood. Now there were different opinions as to where the soul cultivation wood was. Some said that some of the cultivators who participated in the siege took the soul cultivation wood for themselves. Some said that the cultivators of the imperial regency had already moved the soul cultivation wood to the secret realm. The lower part of the soul cultivation wood became an unsolved case. Wang Daoyuan carefully walked into the courtyard and observed the spiritual field in the courtyard. This was indeed the Xianxia pavilion. There were many types of spiritual herbs. The resurrection grass and dew flower that he was looking for were all in the spiritual field. The two cultivators in the hall were both in the early stage of the Yuanying realm. Wang Daoyuan was still confident that he could hide it from them, so he became bolder. He walked to the side of the spiritual field, picked a few resurrection grass and dew flowers, and kept them in the space of the spiritual pearl. With these two spiritual herbs, the trip to the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace could be considered complete. There were other level 5 spiritual herbs in the spiritual field, so naturally he could not let them go. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from the house. The spiritual field of the Xianxia pavilion is guarded by the Divine Pill sect. Which sect's Daoyu is so unruly to come here and steal spiritual herbs? Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was a little shocked. He had been hiding and did not make any big movements. How could he be discovered? The young man asked, "Senior Marshal Brother, there is no one outside. Did you feel wrong?" The middle-aged man replied, "My divine sense is related to space. Just now, I clearly felt that there were spatial fluctuations in the courtyard. Someone must have stolen the spiritual herbs and kept them in the space treasure." Chapter 743. Needless to say, Yuanying cultivators had good memory. They soon found that a few resurrection grasses and jade dew flowers were missing. The young cultivator said, "Senior Marshal Brother's magical power is really powerful. Someone did steal the spiritual herbs. Daoyu in the courtyard, you've been discovered. You'd better show yourself quickly. It's not a big deal. Daoyu didn't need to pick these unripe spiritual herbs. Just leave them behind. If you make a big deal out of it, it will affect the relationship between the two sides." Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't dare to show himself. He didn't care about the two's shouting and quietly left the Xianxia pavilion. Although their whereabouts were discovered, the two thought that it was done by cultivators from other big powers. They wanted to escape from the heavenly palace now and find a place to hide. Maybe they could escape this disaster. The two shouted a few times but didn't see anyone show up. They were a bit annoyed. The young cultivator said, "Senior martial brother, this person is very good at hiding. It seems that he doesn't want to show himself. Let's report to martial uncle. If the spiritual herbs are found missing, the two of us will be punished." The middle-aged cultivator nodded and immediately sent a message to the Dao protector to report the situation. At this time, the late Yuanying cultivator guarding the island in the center of Xuanwu Lake opened his eyes. He said to himself, "Which Powers Jr. is so ignorant to steal the spiritual herbs of our divine pill sect?" Then he used his divine sense to scan the spiritual fields on the shore. He was immediately furious. This thief is so arrogant. He dared to steal the spiritual herbs under my nose. He's obviously looking down on me. This is intolerable. We must investigate this thoroughly and catch him. Then he transmitted his voice to the other cultivators. After Wang Daoyuan left the Shenong pavilion, he fled toward the eastern palace wall. By the time he reached the palace walls, several strands of divine sense swept towards him. However, with black magic robe, he didn't expose his whereabouts. There was also a defensive formation on the wall. This formation wasn't difficult to break, but it could still block him for a few breaths. For the Yuanying cultivators, this was enough time to attack many times. In just a short while, the number of people on the city wall had increased by several times. With his current strength, it was unrealistic for him to escape from several Yuanying cultivators at the same time. If the late-stage Yuanying cultivators from the Heavenly Palace were to catch up to them, they would have no choice but to surrender. Once caught, it would be a fate worse than death. Moreover, these cultivators were not sure who had stolen the spirit plants. There were cultivators from the Seven Stars Alliance, Blood Shark and Mystic Ice Island in the Heaven Palace. He had fallen into the hands of the Divine Pill sect, and the first person to be suspicious of the Seven Stars Alliance was none other than the Blood Shark. There would definitely be a quarrel between the two sides. Both sides had a blood feud. If things got out of hand, they might even end up fighting. That would be the best time to slip away. There were only 3 days left before the secret realm closed. First, he had to find a place to hide. After 3 days, he would be randomly teleported out. As long as he was not too unlucky, he would be directly teleported into the midst of the Seven Stars Alliance. After making up his mind, Wang Daoyuan used the concealment devil art to suppress his aura. He came to a secluded place and sat down cross-legged. There were formations under the ground of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace, so he could not escape through the earth. At this time, several late-stage Yuanying cultivators gathered at the Shenong Pavilion. They checked the spirit fields. The traces of Wang Daoyuan picking the spirit plants were still clearly visible. An extremely muscular cultivator said, "Indeed, there are traces of freshly picked spirit plants." An old cultivator said, "It's not just the Shenong Pavilion. There are also many spirit plants around the Xuanwu Lake that I'm guarding. Which fellow Taoist did my divine pill sect defend? Who Taoist dares to humiliate me like this?" A cultivator wearing a white robe with a golden longsword embroidered on it said, "The various factions have already divided their territories. The mature spirit plants are almost all picked. What's the use of picking these immature spirit plants? Could it be that they have a habit of stealing and are itching to steal?" When he said steal, he purposely emphasized his tone and looked at the other cultivators. Those cultivators were Blood Shark's people. What he meant was that Blood Shark's people stole the spirit plants and provoked the Divine Pill sect. This person was a cultivator from the Alioth Sword sect. It was the Alioth Sword sect that led the destruction of the Imperial Regency. The upper echelons of Blood Shark were all cultivators of the Imperial Regency. They already had a blood feud with the Seven Stars Alliance. How could they be willing to accept this? An old cultivator laughed. "That's true. Some people have a habit of stealing and are itching to steal. A few thousand years ago, they stole our Imperial Regency's territory. Maybe it's because the things they stole were big enough that they didn't itch after thousands of years. Now their old habits are acting up again. They want to steal something again. Looks like they have their eyes on the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. After taking down the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace, the next step is to take the entire Seven Stars Mystery Realm for themselves." Sword cultivators were mostly straightforward. How could they withstand this provocation? The Alioth Sword sect cultivator was so angry that his face turned red. Bullsh*t. Back then, the Imperial Regency bullied the cultivators of the Sea of Seven Stars. They even used sorcery to control other cultivators and turn them into puppets, causing the heavens to be angry. My Alioth sword sect followed the will of the people and carried out justice on behalf of the heavens. We destroyed the Imperial Regency. Back then, the various forces attacked openly. When did they steal? The Blood Shark cultivator had a mocking expression. Daoyu, why are you in such a hurry? Did you hit a sore spot? The Alioth sword sect cultivator took out his natal magic weapon and scolded. You've gone too far. Today I will fight you to the death. The Blood Shark cultivator was not to be outdone. If your Alioth sword sect doesn't play dirty, who can you beat? Rogue cultivators of the same level can beat you up. Saying this, he also took out his magic weapon and prepared to attack. Seeing that things were about to get out of hand, the other Seven Stars Alliance cultivators quickly stopped them. The bulky cultivator stood between the two. Both sides have already agreed to let go of past grudges in the Heavenly Palace. Let's not talk about the past. Let's investigate the disciples of the various forces and clarify this matter. If this stalemate continues when the secret realm closes, there will be no clues. In the future, both sides will blame each other and it might lead to chaos. Hearing this, the Alioth sword sect and Blood Shark cultivators calmed down. The two sides had fought many times in the past thousands of years. Each time blood flowed like a river. Now, the demonic cultivators of the myriad demon islands had grown stronger. The cultivators of Mystic Ice Island also wanted to reach out to the Sea of Seven Stars. If this continued, the Seven Stars Alliance and Blood Shark would no longer be in charge of the Sea of Seven Stars. Seeing that his words were effective, the bulky cultivator struck while the iron was hot. Let's find the person first. We'll talk about other things later. No one had any objections. An early nascent soul cultivator stood up and said, Junior has a spirit beast and its innate ability is to detect scents. Since this person appeared here, he must have left some traces of his scent. When I release the spirit beast, he won't be able to hide. Saying this, he summoned a black dog from his spirit beast pouch. This black dog was only 3 feet long and had a cultivation level of low-grade 4th level. It sniffed hard in the spirit field and a wave of spirit power appeared on its body. After about 10 breaths, the black dog sent a message to its master. The cultivator said, according to the scent, this person first appeared at the Jade Water River. Then he followed the Jade Water River to Xuanwu Lake. He circled around Xuanwu Lake and left a lot of scent in the spirit field. Then he came to the Shinong Pavilion. After leaving this place, he went east. He stopped near the east gate for a while and then restrained his scent, making it difficult to detect him. Moao can't lock onto him unless he's near him. The one clan cultivator said, according to the results of Moao's little friend's detection, this person hasn't left yet. How about this? Let's gather all the disciples in the Heavenly Palace and let Moao's little friend check them one by one. No one had any objections. They all sent messages to the cultivators of their respective sections. Chapter 744. These people were also very efficient, and the cultivators from various sects quickly gathered at the Shinong Pavilion. Although Wang Daoyuan did not dare to use his divine sense to investigate, he could see cultivators coming and going with his naked eye. In the Shinong Pavilion, Moao carefully sniffed the scent of each cultivator. He quickly sniffed everyone's scent and transmitted his voice to his master again. Moao cupped his hands at the few Yuanine cultivators and said, Seniors, the person who stole the spiritual medicine is not here. The cultivator from the Alioth sword sect said, in that case, let them patrol the Sky Palace first to prevent that thief from attacking again. Let's follow Moao's little friend and walk around the palace wall to prevent that person from mixing in with the cultivators on duty. No one had any objections. The cultivators at the peak of the Golden Core realm and the early stage of the Yuanine realm began to patrol around. The cultivators at the late stage of the Yuanine realm led Moao to the east gate. Wang Daoyuan's position was not far from the east palace wall. Soon he saw a cultivator leading a black dog on the wall. Accompanied by a few old cultivators, they were sniffing the scent of the cultivators on duty. He knew that things were not good. Canine spirit beasts had a keen sense of smell and they had probably smelled his scent. He was still too close to the palace wall. Although he had tried his best to conceal his scent, It was impossible to conceal it no matter what method he used. If he was discovered by the black dog, he would be in big trouble. He got up and walked to the west, trying to avoid this person. The best way to avoid being tracked by scent was to enter the water. If he stayed in the water, even if some of his scent was exposed, it would be diluted by the water. Humans could not conceal all scents, and spirit beasts could not smell all scents. As long as the scent was faint enough, it would not be a problem to hide from the black dog. He found a place by the Jade River where the water flow was faster and entered the water. In such a place, scents dissipated quickly, and the movement caused by entering the water was not obvious. Taking advantage of the fact that the patrollers were far away, he quickly entered the water and was not discovered. Foundation establishment cultivators could hide in the water for a few days, let alone Yuanyin cultivators. As long as he was not discovered within 3 days, everything would be fine. Although the palace walls of the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace were especially long, there weren't many people, so they were quickly checked. The cultivator of the Divine Pill sect said angrily, "What the hell? All the cultivators in the Heavenly Palace have been checked, but there is still nothing. Could it be that someone left the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace and then quietly came back to pick spiritual herbs?" The Alioth Sword sect cultivator frowned slightly. There's no point in stealing some immature spiritual herbs. There was no need to expend so much effort unless there was another purpose. Could it be that someone is deliberately instigating a war between the 7 Stars Alliance and Bloodshark so that they can benefit from it? After he finished speaking, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced at the Wen clan cultivators. The cultivator from the Wen family wasn't happy. True monarch lifeless, are you saying that the cultivators from Mystic Island are interfering? Why don't I summon all the cultivators from Mystic Island and let this mastiff smell them? My Wen family is the overlord of Mystic Island, and the previous family head did intend to reach into the Sea of 7 Stars. In these recent years, you all know about my Wen family. We won't be able to interfere with the affairs of the Sea of 7 Stars in the next 1 or 2,000 years. The muscular cultivator continued. The people we brought in didn't have any hidden powerful cultivators. I think it's most likely a rogue cultivator. After all of us have these spiritual herbs, there's no need to spend so much effort to steal them. If it's a rogue cultivator who didn't have much outside and wanted to take the risk, then it makes sense. In the last few days our cultivators on guard were a bit lax and he managed to sneak in. He saw that there were no mature spiritual herbs in the spiritual fields, so he picked some spiritual herb sprouts. The Wen family cultivator nodded. According to what the mastiff smelled, this person stood near the east gate for a while. At that time we should have strengthened our defenses. There were no changes in the various formations, so this person shouldn't have escaped. Also, he shouldn't be too strong. Otherwise he would have forced his way out. Since he's still in the Heavenly Palace and isn't strong, let's spread out and guard the entrances. No matter how good he is at hiding, he won't dare to move around in front of our people. Then we'll take the mastiff and search bit by bit. We can't burrow into the ground in the Heavenly Palace, so no matter how strong he is, he can't hide forever. No one had any objections. The early stage Yuanyin cultivators and Golden Core cultivators spread out and set up surveillance formations on the various paths. The mid-stage Yuanyin cultivators guarded the formations on the palace walls, while the late-stage Yuanyin cultivators brought Mo Zhao and the mastiff to slowly search the entire Heavenly Palace. After a day, the entire Heavenly Palace was searched, but there was still nothing. Everyone started to mutter. The Wen family cultivator asked, "Little friend Mo Zhao, is there any limit to your spirit beast's ability to detect the opponent's aura?" Mo Zhao didn't hide anything. "Senior, the mastiff can't detect the aura in the water." Upon hearing this, the lifeless True Lord quickly said, "That's right, this person must be hiding in the water. There are only a few spirit springs, a jade river and a Xuanwu lake in the entire Heavenly Palace. The Xuanwu lake is connected to the outside world and is protected by a formation. There's no way out. There are still 2 days left. Let's search the Jade River." Time was tight, so everyone was very decisive. They sent people to set up formations on both sides of the Jade River. Then, starting from the Xuanwu lake downstream, they continuously cast spells to attack the water. Wang Daoyuan also noticed the movements of these big forces. The Jade River was only about 100 miles long, so it wouldn't take long to search it. Instead of waiting for death here, it was better to take a gamble. He would find a place far away from the Xuanwu Lake and force his way through the city gate. With this idea in mind, he used the cloud escape and blended into the water, quickly swimming against the current. Soon he arrived near the source of the Jade River, which was very close to the western palace wall. There was an early-stage Yuanying cultivator guarding the shore, and 2 mid-stage Yuanying cultivators on the palace wall, as well as a defensive formation. It would be very difficult to force his way out. However, there was no other way now. When the late-stage Yuanying cultivators came to investigate, it would be impossible to force his way out. He quietly went ashore near the source of the river, which was surrounded by warning formations. He didn't have time to care about these now, so he ran directly toward the western palace wall. The white tiger blade in his dantian was already filled with sword chi and sword intent. It was ready to attack at any time. After running a few steps, he entered the formation. The surrounding Yuanying cultivators were alarmed. A silver light slashed toward Wang Daoyuan. This was the attack of a late-stage Yuanying cultivator. It seemed that this group of people had been prepared. They had left a late-stage Yuanying cultivator here to ambush him. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the cloud escape and fled to the side. With the Black Devil's robe on him, the opponent couldn't lock onto him, so dodging wasn't a big problem. The attack didn't hit him, but it broke the surveillance formation on the riverbank. Taking advantage of the broken formation, Wang Daoyuan hurriedly fled in the southeast direction. The 7 Stars Heavenly Palace wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. There were also many defensive formations around the palace. These formations that were set up by the major factions couldn't cover the entire Heavenly Palace. There were bound to be many loopholes. As soon as his whereabouts were exposed, the cultivators on the other side of Xuanwu Lake didn't care about the fish and rushed over. The cultivators stationed in various places also began to gather in the direction he fled. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to fight with the cultivators blocking his way. He could only constantly change directions to avoid detection. Suddenly he felt something familiar and frightening in front of him. This feeling was very familiar. It was the same feeling he had in Beiyuan's demon-resisting mountain and the heaven-ending abyss. He had relied on this thing to successfully condense the Guiyuan sword intent. The things stored in the Heavenly Palace should also be related to the Guiyuan sword intent. Regardless of whether it was a way out or not, even if he couldn't escape, he could use this power to resist for a while. The longer he delayed, the more hope he had. Soon he arrived in front of a very tall and majestic hall. The words, Ziwei Hall, were written on the plaque in front of the hall. Chapter 745. Seeing these 3 words, Wang Daoyuan felt a chill in his heart. He originally thought that with this special feeling there might be a way out. But now it seemed like there was no hope. No one had been able to break through the Ziwei Palace for tens of thousands of years. With his strength, it was impossible to break through the formation. There was nowhere to run. This was the center of the entire palace. No matter where he ran, he would have to run 100 miles to reach the palace walls. Even if he couldn't fly, late-stage Yuanying cultivators could run faster than him. Moreover, there were many body-tempering cultivators in the 7 Stars Alliance. With a strong physical body, he could run faster. Sure enough, in less than 10 breaths of time, people gathered around. The black dog was also brought over. At such a close distance, his devil concealment art couldn't hide from late-stage Yuanying cultivators. At this time, running away was no longer realistic. Since there was something related to the Guiyuan sword intent in the palace, it might be able to resonate with his sword intent. He might as well use the resonance of his sword intent to have a good fight with them. Even if he couldn't win, it wasn't certain that he would die. As long as he released the spiritual pearl and entered the pearl's space, there was still a way out. Back then, when he slashed out the heaven-destroying abyss, it only damaged the spiritual pearl and didn't destroy it. At most, the Sea of 7 Stars had soul formation cultivators. They couldn't do anything to the spiritual pearl. Moreover, apart from Wang Daoyuan himself, no one else could put it into the Sea of Consciousness. After the spiritual pearl recognized its master, it would crazily absorb spirit chi once it was outside the Sea of Consciousness. It was a hot potato for anyone who got it. The spirit chi in their own sect probably wasn't enough for the spiritual pearl to absorb. At most, they could use special methods to seal it somewhere. If that was the case, he might never be able to make a name for himself again. The grade of the spiritual vein in the spiritual pearl was limited by his cultivation. If he didn't go out, he wouldn't be able to break through to the soul formation realm, and the spiritual pearl wouldn't be able to advance. It could only exhaust its lifespan in the space and slowly die of old age. A few late-stage Yuanying cultivators appeared with the black dog about 1,000 feet in front of Wang Daoyuan. At this time their spiritual consciousness could already see Wang Daoyuan. True Lord Wuxia of Alioth Sword Sect sneered, "So you're the one who's stirring up trouble. You're just an early Yuanying, yet you've made so many of us play with you for so long. You almost caused us to fight amongst ourselves. You won't be able to survive. Do you want to kill yourself or do you want me to do it?" The white tiger blade had already been filled with spiritual energy and sword energy. Both of his hands were in a sword-holding position. The white tiger blade appeared in his hand, and the demon-slaying sword was instantly formed. At this moment, a shocking sword will also exploded from the school of the Emperor Star. The white tiger blade let out a soft humming sound. Wang Daoyuan only felt that the demon-slaying sword's power had skyrocketed. Suddenly he waved the long sword in his hand and slashed at the lifeless Shinran. This sword was supported by the sword will of the school of the Emperor Star. The lifeless Shinran felt that this sword will was extremely sharp. Since he couldn't tell the depth of the attack, he didn't take it head-on. He was already prepared for this. With a burst of spiritual energy under his feet, he dodged the sword. The cultivators behind him weren't so lucky. They weren't mentally prepared and their strength was much weaker. With one slash, an early Yuanying disciple of Alioth Sword Sect was cut in half. The Yuanying disciple wasn't spared either. He was cut in half along with his body. True Lord Wuxia was furious. "I didn't expect him to be a sword cultivator. Everyone, Daoyi, don't attack first. This person killed a disciple of my Alioth Sword Sect. I'll kill him myself." With that, a long sword that looked like a blood jade appeared in his hand. The sword emitted a strong murderous aura and the smell of blood. The Wen clan cultivator hurriedly tried to dissuade him. "Wuxia Daoyu, calm down. This person's sword will can resonate with the things in the school of the Emperor Star. We might be able to open the school of the Emperor Star's formation through him. We all know how many good things came out of the Seven Stars mystery realm back then. The school of the Emperor Star is the core of the Seven Stars heavenly palace. If we can enter, we'll get many benefits." Hearing this, the others were also a little tempted. The Divine Pill Sect cultivator said, "Kid, you only took some spiritual herbs and killed a disciple of Alioth Sword Sect. We chased after you before because you almost caused us to fight. As long as you're willing to help us open the formation, we'll let you live." The treasures in the school of the Emperor Star were naturally coveted by everyone. Ever since the discovery of the Seven Stars mystery realm, the forces in the Sea of Seven Stars changed very frequently. Tens of thousands of years ago, the major forces that existed today were all unknown small forces. It was because they gained some benefits from the Seven Stars heavenly palace that they rose to power. For example, the Imperial Regency was able to rise from a second-rate force to dominating the Sea of Seven Stars for tens of thousands of years, mainly because of the soul cultivation wood. Although the doppelganger soul cultivation technique also played a big part, without the soul cultivation wood, it would be difficult for it to grow. The lifeless Shinran naturally wanted the treasures in the school of the Emperor Star as well, especially after seeing that Wang Daoyuan's sword intent could resonate with the treasures in the school of the Emperor Star. This meant that there were treasures for sword cultivators in the school of the sword. If they could get it, Alioth Sword Sect would very likely surpass the other sects and become the overlord of the Sea of Seven Stars. Especially since one of their Yuanying cultivators had been killed, they could use this as an excuse to ask for more benefits. Thinking of this, he replied, "I can let him go, but the genius disciple of my Alioth Sword Sect can't die in vain." Hearing this, the late-stage Yuanying cultivator from Blood Shark looked disdainful. He couldn't even dodge an attack from a cultivator of the same level. At best, he was a mediocre person. In order to ask for a sky-high price, he had to say that he was a genius. However, he didn't expose him. Right now, everyone had common interests. If they fell out, they would lose everything. It wouldn't be good for anyone. The cultivator from Xianxia sect also said, "Since Alioth Sword Sect has suffered a greater loss, you can take more of the benefits inside." Xianxia sect was also a high-ranking member of the Seven Stars Alliance. Back when they destroyed the Imperial Regency, they had also contributed greatly. They were also a powerful force that occupied one of the Seven Islands. Their status and strength were no weaker than Alioth Sword Sect. The late-stage Yuanying cultivator from Tianji Palace also nodded, agreeing that Alioth Sword Sect could take more of the benefits. These late-stage Yuanying cultivators all had their own selfish motives. If they could successfully enter the school of the Emperor Star and obtain a lot of benefits, their status would also rise when they returned to their respective sections. It wasn't impossible for them to obtain a chance to break through to the soul formation realm in the future. If they missed this opportunity, soul formation cultivators would probably come with them the next time the secret land opened. Even if they obtained benefits, it had nothing to do with them. In the Seven Stars Alliance, Alioth Sword Sect, Tianshu Sect, and Tianji Palace had the highest status. If Tianshu Sect and Tianji Sect agreed, no one else had the right to speak. True Lord Lifeless had achieved his goal, so he naturally had no objections. Since we have an agreement, let's let this kid go. Everyone looked at Wang Daoyuan, waiting for him to express his opinion. If there was a way out, Wang Daoyuan would naturally not reject it. If he helped to break the formation and use up the remaining 2 days, he could escape with his life. Even if he broke the formation in advance, no one would care about him anymore. They would all run in to snatch the benefits. Escaping into the space of the spiritual pearl was his last option. He could use it at any time, so he wasn't in a hurry. He cupped his hands and said, "I can help, but you must promise to let me leave the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace after breaking the formation." As long as the formation was broken, an early-stage Yuanying cultivator couldn't do anything to him. Not to mention giving him a way out, they could even promise to let him be the sect leader of their sect. What else could he do if they went back on their word? The burly cultivator of Tianshu Sect patted his chest and promised, "Little friend, don't worry. As long as you are willing to help us break the formation, you will be the guest elder of Tianshu Sect. Whoever attacks you will be the enemy of the Tianshu Sect." Alioth Sword Sect, Tianji Palace, Blood Shark, and Wen clan cultivators all made promises. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "If that's the case, I will listen to your instructions." True Lord Lifeless smiled. "Demon Sealing Perfected Lord, I will leave the matter of finding the formation's flaws to you. We only have 2 days, so we must solve the formation within 1 day." A late nascent soul stage cultivator wearing a Taoist robe with an 8 trigrams pattern walked up and smiled. This formation has been studied countless times by the seniors and has been thoroughly studied. It will definitely be completed within a day. As long as this kid can be of use, breaking the formation will not be a problem. With that, he took out a compass. Under his control, streaks of jade-white light flew out of the compass and merged with the formation's light barrier. An hour later, Demon Sealing Perfected Lord withdrew the light and began to analyze the formation with a few cultivators wearing the same clothes. Everyone waited on the side. Wang Daoyuan hoped that time would pass faster. After 2 days, he would have a chance to escape when he was teleported out. Unfortunately, no one was controlling the formation, and Demon Sealing Perfected Lord was too fast. It only took him 14 hours to analyze the array's weakness. The compass in Demon Sealing Perfected Lord's hand glowed brightly. A 3-inch wide 8 trigram pattern flew out and landed on the school of the Emperor Star's defensive light barrier. The barrier's spirit power kept flowing, and the 8 trigram pattern's position kept changing. Demon Sealing Perfected Lord smiled. "I have already marked the formation's weak points. Now it's up to Daoyu to make a move." Swordless Perfected Lord said bluntly, "Kid, use your sword intent to attack the 8 trigram pattern on the formation. Let us see if you are of any use. Don't slack off. You can only survive if you open the formation. If you are of no use, I will kill you to avenge the disciples of the sect." Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to be careless. If he wanted to survive, he had to make a move first. He took out the white tiger blade, formed the demon-slaying sword, and slashed at the 8 trigram pattern. The thing in the school of the Emperor Star resonated with the demon-slaying sword again. Several streaks of sword chi even flew out of the hall and attacked the defensive light barrier. At this time, the defensive light barrier's strength had decreased significantly and became much dimmer. The sword fell and the demon-slaying sword shattered. The defensive light barrier also trembled slightly. The late-stage Yuanying cultivators were overjoyed. Swordless Perfected Lord was overjoyed. When our soul formation ancestors attacked the formation's weak points, the effect was only so. A mere early-stage Yuanying cultivator can make such a big difference. Let's attack together. Maybe we can really break the formation. Everyone agreed and took out their life-bound Dharma artifacts. Even the early-stage Yuanying and peak-stage Golden Core cultivators attacked the defensive light barrier together. Wang Daoyuan was also forced to attack together. The defensive light barrier trembled more and more violently, and the spirit power inside decreased. Success was in sight. Everyone was greatly encouraged and attacked with all their might. More than 8 hours later, a crack sound was heard, and the defensive light barrier shattered with a loud rumble. A murderous aura surged out. Everyone felt as if they were facing a ferocious beast that could devour them at any time. Chapter 746. The inheritance of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace was not easy to obtain. Back then, when the ancestors of these forces broke through the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace's array, there were many tricks up their sleeves. Now that the core of the Ziwei Palace was open, there would definitely be many tricks up their sleeves. None of the cultivators from the major forces dared to step forward. They all retreated. Wang Daoyuan was the opposite. Now that the array was open, these people were going to burn the bridge after crossing the river. If he retreated with them now, he would be courting death. It was better to continue forward. Even if he encountered any danger, it would be better than falling into the hands of these major forces. He used the concealment devil art and cloud escape to escape into the palace. The people outside the palace wanted to enter but did not dare to. When the other palaces were opened, many Yuanying cultivators died. It could be said that the gains of the various forces were made with the lives of their disciples. They did not expect that the Ziwei Palace, which had not been opened for tens of thousands of years, would suddenly open. They were not prepared at all. The one clan cultivator asked, "Daoyu, are we just going to watch? That kid most likely obtained the core inheritance of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. After entering the Ziwei Palace, I'm afraid he will soon finish plundering all the benefits." The Divine Pill Sect cultivator laughed. "Why don't Wen Daoyu go in first to explore? If there are benefits, he can get a bigger share." The sturdy cultivator from the Tianshu sect said, "We can't go on like this. True Lord Traversing Sea, didn't your blood shark boast of being a direct descendant of the Imperial Regency? Let some spiritual beasts in. We don't expect to get anything good, just explore the way." True Lord Traversing Sea glanced at him. "You want me to work for the Imperial Regency for free?" True Lord Lifeless continued, "You can get a bigger share too. The level of danger inside is not low. If we go in rashly, I'm afraid all of us will die." With this promise, True Lord Traversing Sea naturally did not refuse. He released a mid-grade 5th-level spiritual monkey. This spiritual monkey was only a foot tall. Its fur shone with golden light and its eyes were golden. There was a blood-red slit above its eyebrows. Seeing this, the sturdy cultivator from the Tianshu sect said, "This is a three-eyed golden monkey found in the Flying Ape Mountain in the Secret Realm. Tens of thousands of years have passed. I didn't think that you would be able to let them reproduce until now." This fellow's eyesight was extremely strong and could see through illusions. Its third eye was capable of using eye techniques to attack souls. With this, we don't have to worry about that rogue cultivator snatching everything away. True Lord Tyrannical Sea smiled without saying anything and released the three-eyed golden monkey. He was a direct descendant of the Imperial Regency back in the day. Naturally, he would use a split soul to tame his beast. This three-eyed golden monkey was his split soul. Under his control, the golden monkey entered the main hall. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan had already entered the hall. Seeing the situation in front of him, he was somewhat surprised. From the outside, the hall was only about 2 square miles wide. For a nascent soul cultivator, this distance was nothing at all. However, inside the main hall, it was extremely spacious. He had already walked more than 10 miles inside, but he still hadn't seen the back wall. The entire hall might have been constructed using the law of space. However, it shouldn't be considered a spatial artifact. Wang Daoyuan had a storage bag on his waist. If it was a spatial artifact, the storage bag would have exploded long ago. The things that flowed out of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace had created many great forces. It went without saying how powerful the inheritance was. It wasn't strange that it could play with the law of space. It was hard to say how big the space inside the hall was. There was also a thick fog around, and his divine consciousness couldn't probe too far. Even if he used the heaven-peering secret technique, he could only see the situation within 200 feet. He could only follow his senses and find something that could resonate with his sword intent. He had the Beiyuan sword intent, which came from the same source as this thing. He shouldn't harm his own people. He continued to go deeper into the hall and soon saw a figure in the fog. Wang Daoyuan was shocked. Could there be someone alive here? There was a level 6 spirit vein here. If there was a living person, the highest cultivation level he could reach was the peak of soul formation. He was just a beginner in yuanying. He wouldn't even be able to withstand a slap. However, this figure didn't move. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't rush to court death. He carefully circled around from the side. When he was 100 feet away from the figure suddenly moved. It was just that his movements were extremely stiff. It wasn't difficult for him to bend his joints like a refined corpse, but his movements were very awkward. Moreover, with a slight movement, the joints made the sound of metal rubbing against each other. Wang Daoyuan could already see this person's appearance clearly. He had the appearance of a middle-aged man. His skin color was ordinary, but his face was dull. He shouldn't be a refined corpse. He also didn't feel the existence of vitality. He didn't dare to use his divine consciousness to explore the situation, lest he be discovered. The middle-aged man just glanced at where he was and ran in the direction of the hall door. With this run, his movements were even more obvious. The sound of metal rubbing against each other spread all over his body. There was no vitality and a body full of iron lumps. This was undoubtedly a puppet. This time Wang Daoyuan was relieved. A puppet without anyone controlling it had extremely weak detection ability. He was wearing the black demon robe and also used the devil concealment art. The aura he leaked was almost negligible. This puppet shouldn't be able to discover him. Wang Daoyuan only knew that the refining method of puppets required materials like the yellow spring willow. However, puppets were also mentioned in some of the refining methods. After all, puppets were also within the scope of refining techniques. It was just that refining them was very difficult. There was no spiritual power fluctuation on this guy's body. Wang Daoyuan wasn't sure how strong he was. He wasn't sure whether he could stop the cultivators of the big forces behind him. Soon there was a scream of a monkey behind him as well as the sound of metal. It seemed that the puppet had the upper hand, so he didn't care about it. Following his senses, he continued to go deeper into the hall. After walking less than a mile, he encountered another puppet. Except for the difference in appearance, there was no difference. Wang Daoyuan carefully circled around, but after a few steps, the puppet moved again. This time it didn't run outside. Instead it jumped high and attacked him. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape to dodge. The puppet's speed wasn't fast, so he successfully dodged the attack. However, as soon as he stopped, the puppet rushed towards him at an extremely fast speed. The opponent's strength was unknown. Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to take it head-on. He used the smoke escape to dodge again. This time he stopped on a pillar. The puppet didn't attack again. Wang Daoyuan was a little curious. The puppet's spiritual sense wasn't enough to discover him. In particular, after using the smoke escape, it condensed a large amount of black fog, and its ability to conceal spiritual sense was even stronger. However, the puppet could still attack him directly. This meant that the puppet didn't rely on spiritual sense to detect the enemy's whereabouts. If it didn't rely on spiritual sense and the puppet didn't have sight, smell, and so on like a human, how did this guy find him? He carefully checked the ground. There were square tiles on the ground that were a foot long. They were refined with special materials that couldn't be penetrated by spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan slowly slid down from the pillar. He lightly tapped the tiles with his foot. The puppet didn't attack. He slowly increased his strength. When his strength reached 15 kilograms, the puppet attacked. Sure enough, the puppet used the weight of the tiles to determine the enemy's position. As long as a tile reached 15 kilograms, the puppet would immediately attack. There was a space restriction array here, so the gravity was extremely strong. A sparrow thrown on the ground would weigh more than 15 kilograms. Wang Daoyuan's weight in this place was probably tens of thousands of kilograms. Stepping on the intersection of a few tiles didn't have any effect. He could only use the tactic of luring the tiger away from the mountain. He took out a piece of rotten wood from the spirit pearl's space and threw it behind him. The rotten wood fell to the ground 3 miles away. The puppet attacked. Wang Daoyuan immediately jumped down from the pillar. Following the line of tiles, he used the smoke escape to run inside. He wanted to find the next pillar as soon as possible. The puppet crushed the rotten wood with its foot and continued to chase after Wang Daoyuan. However, its speed was still not fast enough. Before it arrived, Wang Daoyuan found the next pillar. Then he used the same trick again. After running for more than 10 miles, the puppet finally stopped chasing. Chapter 747. As he went deeper and deeper, Wang Daoyuan's perception of the sword intent became stronger and stronger. Soon, another figure appeared in front of him. Wang Daoyuan felt his hair stand on end. These puppets were each harder to deal with than the last. Who knew what kind of trouble this third one would cause? Just as he was about to take a detour, the puppet moved. It held a long sword without any spiritual energy fluctuations. The long sword was wrapped in a layer of dust. When the puppet moved, the dust fell and the sword shone with a cold light. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to escape, the puppet rushed over with the sword. This guy's speed was extremely fast. Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape and temporarily pulled away. Then he took out the 5th rank long sword and his sword intent erupted, clashing with the puppet. There was obviously no spiritual energy on the puppet's long sword, but there was sword intent, and it was the returning origin sword intent. When the sword slashed down, Wang Daoyuan was sent flying by the puppet's huge strength. Under this attack, Wang Daoyuan felt a faint pain in his internal organs. This strength was definitely at the late stage of yuanying. Fortunately, the long sword in his hand was hard and barely blocked the sword. However, there was a half-inch deep cut on the sword and there was no need to repair it. He immediately took out the white tiger blade and continued to fight. But he didn't expect the refined corpse to return to its original position and stop attacking. Wang Daoyuan was a little confused. Could it be that it recognized the returning origin sword intent and treated him as one of its own? Since the puppet didn't attack, he wouldn't court death by provoking it. He bypassed the puppet and continued to walk toward his target. He came to a side wall. There was nothing on the wall, but Wang Daoyuan could clearly feel that there was something behind the wall that he desired and feared. He took out the white tiger blade and used the demon-slaying sword to slash at the wall. Before the sword landed, the wall trembled. A stone door opened automatically. Inside was a very small stone room, only 3 feet square. When the stone door opened, a strong murderous aura surged out, and a very weak sword chi slashed out. Wang Daoyuan's demon-slaying sword shattered upon contact with the sword chi. After dispersing the demon-slaying sword, the sword chi was still very powerful, but it did not attack him. Instead, it went back into the stone room. This sword chi had no intention of harming anyone, so he was relieved. His divine sense entered the stone room. In the stone room, there was only a stone table that was 3 feet long. On the table there was a book made of metal. There was a blank picture scroll hanging on the back wall. The sword chi and sword intent came from this picture scroll. What had always attracted him was this blank scroll. Previously, the sword cultivator puppet had let him go after helping him break through the array formation. Moreover, the sword chi just now did not harm him. Moreover, the feeling this painting gave off was a bit similar to the divine sword diagram of the Tai sword sect. His divine sense entered the painting and a strong suction force came. Wang Daoyuan, a dignified body-tempering cultivator, was actually powerless to resist and was directly pulled into the stone room by the suction force. Only when he was a foot away from the painting did he stop. At this moment, an image appeared on the scroll. It was a long sword without any decorations. Then the long sword used the demon-slaying sword and slashed at him. Wang Daoyuan wanted to resist, but he found that his body could not move. Just as he was about to use the spiritual pearl, the scene in front of him changed drastically. He appeared in a valley. This valley was very ordinary. There were no spirit veins and the mountain ranges on both sides were very narrow. Faint sounds of fighting and children crying could be heard in front of him. Just as he was about to go over and take a look, a few chi refinement cultivators ran towards him with children in their arms. Behind them were a few cultivators covered in blood. When these women and cultivators saw him, it was as if they had seen a life-saving straw. The women's eyes were filled with gratitude. Then they quickly ran in the direction behind him. A cultivator with white hair cupped his hands and said, "Senior, there are demons wantonly killing humans. Senior, please save us." Before he finished speaking, a blood-red light flew over from the front. The blood-red light flashed and the cultivators running behind him died instantly. All the blood in their bodies was sucked out. Wang Daoyuan could not be more familiar with the aura in the blood-red light. It was the aura of the blood demon lineage. The spirit energy in the blood-red light was already at the late stage of yuanying, comparable to true Lord Lifeless. With Wang Daoyuan's strength he was no match for it at all. After killing the cultivators, the blood-red light chased after the women with children. It did not pay attention to Wang Daoyuan at all. Wang Daoyuan had a choice in front of him. Should he take the risk to block the blood-red light and save those people? Or should he pretend that he did not see it and leave this place? At this moment, the panicked cries of women and children could be heard behind him. There were also cries for help. As a cultivator of a family, it was natural for him to protect the weak in the family. Although these women and children were not from the family, they were still humans. Wang Daoyuan could not bear to watch them die. Just as the blood-red light was about to pounce on a child, Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and slashed out a sword chi to block the blood-red light. The blood-red light stopped attacking the women and children and turned to attack him. After making a choice, Wang Daoyuan heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, as if he had put down a heavy burden. He took out the white tiger blade and slashed at the blood-red light. Before he slashed out, the scene in front of him changed drastically. The blood-red light, the valley, and the women and children disappeared. He appeared in a cave abode. In front of him was a white-robed cultivator with his back facing him. There was no trace of spirit energy on this person's body. He was no different from an ordinary person. A resolute voice sounded. The scene just now was a test for you. Since you are willing to face the demons who are far stronger than you for a few women and children with low cultivation levels, it means that you have the righteousness of the human race in your heart. Since you have comprehended the sword intent of Beiyuan, talent is naturally not a problem. To be able to take the risk for the righteousness of the human race, your character is passable. You are qualified to be my successor. Remember, no matter how high your cultivation level is, even if you ascend and become an immortal, you will still be a human. I have not established any forces in my life and have only taken in 2 disciples. They are also fighting a bloody battle with the demons. It is hard to say whether they can survive in the future. Therefore, I let the 2 disciples leave their inheritance everywhere. Only the younger generation who comprehended the sword intent of Beiyuan can come here and inherit my inheritance. You have received my inheritance, so you are also my disciple. Grow up as soon as possible and do your part to resist the demons. Even I don't remember my name. The human race calls me Beiyuan Sword Immortal. After saying that, the scene in front of him disappeared again. Wang Daoyuan's body returned to the stone room. The picture scroll on the back wall was still there. There was a sword in the picture, emitting endless killing intent. However, this killing intent was not directed at him. Even this sword gave him a sense of familiarity. He reached out and took the picture scroll. The sword in the picture did not have any intention of resisting. The material of this picture scroll was not ordinary. Its grade was higher than the brilliant sun gold in his hand. It was at least a 7th rank material. Now that he was not out of danger, it was not the time to study this thing. After putting the picture scroll and the golden book on the stone table into the space of the spiritual pearl, the killing intent in the surroundings disappeared. Outside the door of the hall, the cultivators who did not dare to enter rashly also felt the disappearance of the killing intent. Their expressions changed. This was especially true for true Lord Lifeless. He naturally valued things related to sword cultivation the most. Now that the items were gone, he was extremely anxious. Everyone Daoyu wealth comes from danger. There is no such thing as wanting benefits without taking a little risk. If we continue to delay, all the benefits will fall into the hands of that brat. True Lord Raging Sea's 3-eyed golden monkey clone was being beaten up by the puppet. He was also very anxious. However, with his own strength he had no confidence in defeating the puppet. Therefore he did not enter rashly. Now that True Lord Lifeless had spoken, he also echoed. True Lord Lifeless is right. Time waits for no one. Although the puppet inside is strong, we have 7 late-stage yuanying cultivators. Defeating it is not a problem. There are only 20 hours left before the secret realm closes. Everyone, are you just going to watch that brat play us and leave with the treasures in the hall? Chapter 748. Hearing their words, the others were also tempted. There were only 20 hours left before the mystic realm closed. There was no time to wait. The school of the Emperor Star's formation was so powerful that Master Demon Sealer, who was proficient in formations, naturally wanted to obtain some of the inheritance. He also encouraged, Wuxing Henghai Daoist Daoyu is right. There are 7 of us. Can't we take down a puppet? The school of the Emperor Star contains things that dozens of generations of our ancestors have yearned for. Don't forget that the 7-star Sky Palace's formation will automatically repair itself. If we miss this opportunity, where will we find someone who can break the school of the Emperor Star's formation? Even if he couldn't get all the inheritances of the school of the Emperor Star, he had to capture that brat. Otherwise, we won't be able to break the formation the next time we enter the palace. As the saying went, 3 men made a tiger. With their persuasion, the other 4 late-stage Yuanying cultivators also let go of their last shred of hesitation. The 7 of them reached an agreement and prepared to enter the school of the Emperor Star. Master Wuxing said, the early-stage Yuanying and peak-stage Golden Core cultivators will stay outside to prevent that kid from escaping. As for the mid-stage Yuanying cultivators, pick a few of the more skilled ones and enter together. They might be of some use if we encounter danger. Then the 7 late-stage Yuanying cultivators and 3 mid-stage Yuanying cultivators entered the school of the Emperor Star. Under Master Henghai's guidance, the group quickly arrived at the 3-eyed golden monkey. This fellow's physical body was weak and its strongest attack was the soul. The puppet's control was similar to the soul, but it was protected by special spiritual materials. It was too difficult to damage the puppet's core. They could only rely on their own agility to deal with the puppet. Master Henghai immediately put away the 3-eyed golden monkey's avatar. The other Yuanying cultivators surrounded the puppet. Master Wuxing asked, Daoyu Yuji, the Tianji Palace is proficient in refining artifacts. What's the puppet's weakness? Master Yuji shook his head. Usually the puppet's weakness is where the spirit stones are installed. The spiritual energy that the puppet needed to move came from the spiritual energy coming from the ground, so it had no weaknesses. As long as his feet were off the ground, he would naturally lose the ability to resist once his spiritual power was exhausted. Within the flight restriction array, trying to do so was harder than ascending to the heavens. Let's not waste any more time. This puppet is only at the peak of the Tier 5 standard. With so many of us, we should be able to take care of it. Everyone, Daoyu, don't hold back anymore. Use all your trump cards and get rid of this puppet as soon as possible so that we can find the treasure. Everyone used their special skills to attack the puppet. The materials used to refine the puppet were all 6th-tier materials, and they were extremely strong. Everyone was unable to destroy it in a short period of time. The 10 of them spent close to 2 hours before the puppet lost its ability to resist. Perfected Lord Yuji casually placed the damaged puppet into his universe ring. Since he was the one in charge of dealing with the puppets, no one had any objections. After dealing with the puppet, the group continued to venture deeper. Soon they encountered a second puppet. This fellow's strength was slightly stronger than the previous one. It took another 3 hours to get rid of it. After dealing with the 2 puppets without losing a single cultivator, everyone's confidence soared. Soon the sword cultivator puppet taught them a lesson. After Wang Daoyuan took away sword Immortal Gui Yuan's inheritance, the sword cultivator puppet began to wander around. These people did not follow in Wang Daoyuan's footsteps, but they were still bumped into by the sword cultivator puppet. The sword in the puppet's hand was extremely lethal. As soon as the 2 sides clashed, a mid-stage Yuanying cultivator was killed. The sword cultivator puppet no longer had anything to protect. After killing a Yuanying cultivator, it did not continue to attack and instead wandered around. That was because they had already wasted more than 4 hours on the first 2 puppets. This puppet was even more powerful. If they continued to waste time with it, it would probably take them 4 hours to take it down. Even so, they would still lose a lot of manpower. The gains did not make up for the losses. Everyone no longer cared about the sword cultivator puppet and began to search for treasures. Perfected Demon Sealer took out a compass and began to search for places with more obvious spiritual power fluctuations. After Wang Daoyuan obtained sword Immortal Gui Yuan's inheritance, he also began to search other places. He did not expect to find anything good. It would be fine as long as he could stall until the mystic realm closed. Previously, with the inheritance sensing, he was very efficient. Now that he could no longer sense it, he did not know where to go. The flight restriction array here was too powerful. Even the soul-chasing bees could not fly. He took Dahe out of the spirit pearl's space and let it use its sense of smell to explore the surrounding situation. The fog here had a strong suppressive effect on the divine sense in the five senses. However, Dahe's sense of smell was also excellent. Even in this environment, it could smell the situation within 5 kilometers. Far away from the gate and the place where the inheritance was found, they did not encounter any more puppets. It seemed that these puppets were only guarding the gate and the important inheritances. Places without these things were relatively safe. After walking aimlessly for 4 hours, Dahe sent a voice transmission to Wang Daoyun. Master, there is the smell of burning things 5 kilometers ahead. There had been no living people in the 7 stars heavenly palace for tens of thousands of years. The smell of burning things could only come from a place of alchemy and weapon refinement. Dahe did not smell anyone else, which meant that it was safe for the time being. Could go in and explore. The man and the dog went straight forward without encountering any obstacles along the way. Soon they came to a place 2 kilometers away from the target and encountered another puppet. This puppet was a burly man more than 10 feet tall, holding a hammer in his hand. Judging from its posture, its combat power was definitely not low. It did not take the initiative to attack, and Wang Daoyuan did not intend to attack either. The most important thing now was to stay alive. He did not lack the refining inheritance, so there was no need to risk his life. He could wait for the cultivators of the major forces to come and let them deal with the puppets. When the mystic realm was about to close, he would find an opportunity to snatch some good things. Found a pillar nearby and hid in it. Dahe shrank its body and hid in his clothes. The man and the dog waited for a full 2 hours before 2 people came over. These 2 people were true Lord Sweeping Sea of Blood Shark and a cultivator of the Wen clan. After seeing the puppet, the 2 of them were delighted. True Lord Sweeping Sea said with a smile, "When Daoyu, we have not encountered any puppets for more than 2 hours. If we encounter a puppet here, there might be extremely valuable treasures nearby. It seems that we are going to make a fortune. There are only 2 of us here, so let's not hide. Show us your true skills and get rid of this puppet as soon as possible. We'll split the loot in half." The cultivator of the Wen clan also agreed and took out an ice blue bead. True Lord Sweeping Sea also took out a tier 5 upper-grade tiger puppet from his interspatial ring. The 2 of them approached the puppet and soon the puppet moved. The cultivator of the Wen clan threw the bead in his hand, and a cold air spread out. Soon, a thick layer of ice armor appeared on the puppet. The tiger puppet pounced and pushed the burly man puppet to the ground. Seeing that the puppet was restrained, the 2 of them immediately went forward and attacked the burly man puppet's joints. Soon the burly man puppet was destroyed. There was an obvious door behind the burly man puppet. Furthermore, there were no restrictions or mechanisms on the door, only some simple formations to prevent spirit chi from leaking out. It was very similar to an ordinary earth fire chamber. The 2 of them entered the door easily, and there was a huge space of 10,000 feet inside. There were hundreds of fire eyes inside, and most of the formations were still intact. The earth fire within was still burning intensely. In the center of these fire eyes was a 4-legged cauldron that was 10 feet wide. Given its shape, it was undoubtedly a weapon cauldron. This place should be a weapon refinement chamber. The 2 of them were overjoyed. There was a lot of profit in a weapon refinement chamber, and there might even be a weapon refinement legacy. Chapter 749. The weapon tripod was simple without any decorations or inscriptions. However, it emitted the aura of an superior grade 6 dermic weapon. The 2 of them wanted to take the weapon tripod away, but they could not do anything to it. They wanted to drip blood on it, but to no avail. 2 streams of flames shot out from the weapon tripod and attacked the 2 of them. That was the attack of a grade 6 dermic weapon, and they were only late-stage Yuanian cultivators. The 2 of them did not dare to take it head-on and used escape techniques to retreat. The attack range of the 2 streams of flames was only 1,000 feet. After the 2 of them retreated, the flames stopped chasing them. Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea was still in shock. That was close. If not for the fact that the flames stopped chasing us, we would have died here. The Wen clan cultivator gasped for breath as well. An superior grade 6 dermic weapon might have been a grade 7 dermic weapon in the past. After being nurtured by the earth fire for so many years, there's an 80% chance that it has an artifact spirit. Without an owner, the artifact spirit would be in a dormant state and would only attack and defend instinctively. It seems like the artifact spirit doesn't like us and doesn't allow us to be its owner. Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea nodded. We don't have that fortune. Let's not court death. With that said, he began to search the surroundings of the weapon refinement room. Even if the weapon refinement rooms of major factions did not have finished dermic weapons and weapon refinement inheritances, there would be no shortage of high-grade materials. The fog in the weapon refinement room was much thinner. With their spirit consciousness cultivation, they could scout a few thousand feet away. The weapon refinement room was only 1,000 feet square and they could scan the entire room with their spirit consciousness. The two of them came to a corner of the weapon refinement room where there was a bookshelf with 15 books on it. The golden books placed in the weapon refinement room were definitely weapon refinement inheritances and might even contain inheritances for refining puppets. The value of those items far exceeded that of ordinary weapon refinement inheritances. As the successor of the Imperial Regency, Perfected Lord Rampaging Sea naturally knew the value of puppets. Unfortunately, there was an array formation on the bookshelf and the two of them did not dare to act rashly. They checked carefully, trying to find a way to break the array formation. Outside the weapon refinement room, Wang Daoyuan was still hiding obediently and did not act rashly. Dahe was constantly reporting the situation to him through voice transmission. Wang Daoyuan felt a little regretful that the two of them didn't fight, so he didn't have a chance to make a move. The two of them stared at the bookshelf for more than an hour but made no progress. They had no choice but to temporarily give up on the bookshelf and look for refining materials and finished artifacts. The crafting room was opened by the two of them, and the aura of the flames spread out. This aura was rather obvious. 2 hours later, other people were attracted. The newcomers were True Monarch Yuji and True Monarch Demon Sealing. Naturally, the spiritual energy emitted by the flames could not be hidden from True Monarch Demon Sealing's compass. The two of them entered the crafting room and saw True Monarch Rampaging Sea and the cultivators of the Wen clan searching for crafting materials. Perfected Lord Yuji sneered, "Daoyu, that's not very nice of you. Why didn't you inform us that you found such a good place? Why did you take action on your own?" They were all old foxes, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about. True Lord Hunghai replied with a smile, "Daoyu's words make sense. Why don't we inform the other 3 Daoyos and have them split the loot together?" True Monarch Demon Sealing said hurriedly, "They're still looking for other treasures. Let's not disturb them." The 4 of them exchanged glances and smiled, knowing what the other party was thinking. When he saw that Perfected Lord Yuji and True Monarch Demon Sealing were both staring at the weapon tripod, the cultivator of the Wen clan chuckled. "Don't think about that thing. If we could get our hands on it, would we have let you guys see it? There's a bookshelf here with a legacy of weapon refinement. There might even be something for refining puppets. The two of us tried to open it previously but we couldn't. Since Demon Sealing Daoyu is proficient in formations, I wonder if he can open it. In any case, it's just some legacies. After we get our hands on them, we'll make 3 copies and each of the 4 clans will get a copy. How about that?" There was naturally no way they would reject such a good deal. True Monarch Demon Sealing took out his compass once more and began checking the restrictions on the bookshelf. Although there was not much time left, they were not in a hurry. Such a large palace was not something they could explore in a single go. For example, the most important cultivation technique legacies were hidden even more secretively and had stronger protective formations. They did not have the strength to search for those items one by one either. They could only wait for the next opening of the secret realm and have a soul formation cultivator come over personally. True Monarch Demon Sealing's methods were decent as he spent 12 hours to figure out the restrictions completely. There were less than 4 hours left before the secret realm closed. They did not delay any longer and seized the time to attack the restrictions. The so-called restriction was a special small formation that was used to protect some small things. Although restrictions were not resistant to forceful dismantling methods, they could destroy the items they were protecting in advance. Given True Monarch Demon Sealing's methods, there was naturally no way he would allow the legacies within to be destroyed. The light emitted from the compass fused into the light barrier of the restriction to prevent it from destroying the golden books within. Thereafter, the 4 of them began attacking the restriction. After all, the restriction was an ownerless item. Even if it was only at level 6, It could not withstand the continuous attacks of the four of them. More than 2 hours later, a soft cracking sound could be heard as the defensive light barrier shattered. The four of them were delighted. The secret realm was about to close. If they could not break it, they would never have the chance to get their hands on those items in the future. The four of them hurriedly made their moves to fight for those golden books. No matter how well they discussed it previously, it was all nonsense. In the face of benefits, whoever got their hands on them would get it. It was such a good item, but if others were to copy it, its value would be greatly reduced. The four of them wanted to put the golden books into their cosmos rings, but they would be destroyed by others. They could only snatch the golden books with their hands like local ruffians. They each took 2 golden books and were about to continue fighting for the other golden books when 4 sword rays attacked them. A voice that sounded like it had just woken up was heard. Trespassing into Ziwei Palace and breaking the restrictions. Behead. Then a puppet similar to an ordinary person jumped down from the crafting room. It was holding a 3-foot-long sword in its hand and attacked the 4 of them as soon as it landed. Although the voice was vague, it traveled very far. Wang Daoyuan was a few miles away from the crafting room, but he could hear it clearly. He knew that the 4 of them had gotten some benefits and hurriedly approached the door of the crafting room. It was less than half a cup of tea's time before the secret realm closed. Since the 4 late-stage Yuanying realm cultivators were being chased by the puppet, it was a good opportunity for him to steal them. When he arrived at the door, he saw the 4 of them being chased by a puppet. The puppet had the aura of the sword intent of Beiyuan. Although the fog here was thinner, it still suppressed the spirit consciousness of cultivators. It was already difficult for these people to discover him outside, so it was even more impossible for them to find him now. The 4 of them had stayed in the corner of the crafting room for a long time, and Blackie had already grasped their whereabouts. Wang Daoyuan went straight to the bookshelf. He did not know if it was because he was too weak or because of the sword intent of Beiyuan, but the puppet did not attack him. He arrived before the bookshelf and kept the remaining 7 golden books into the space of his spirit pearl. The 4 of them had been staring at the golden books. Now that the golden books were gone, they could naturally sense it. Perfected Lord Yuji cursed, "It's you again, thief. Hand over the golden books obediently." Before he could finish his words, the puppet swung its sword at him again. Perfected Lord Yuji could not be bothered to threaten him and hurriedly dodged the attack. The other 3 seized the opportunity to attack the bookshelf. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly cast an escape technique to dodge the attack. Naturally, his whereabouts were exposed the moment he cast the dermic art. However, the secret realm was about to close. Furthermore, the 4 of them did not dare to focus all their attention on him with the puppet, whose strength was comparable to that of a soul formation realm cultivator. Indeed, their attacks left some marks on the bookshelf and angered the puppet. He waved the sword in his hand and 3 sword chi slashed at the 3 of them. The 3 of them could not be bothered to chase after Wang Daoyuan anymore and hurriedly dodged the attacks. Wang Daoyuan hid beside the gigantic weapon tripod. He did not have any designs on the tripod and flames spewed out of it. At that moment, Perfected Lord Yuji also threw out an iron caltrip casually towards him. This time Wang Daoyuan was attacked from 2 sides, and any attack could threaten his life. Chapter 750. Hidden weapons were also a common method of body tempering cultivators. After all, their physical bodies were strong. However, in terms of long-range damage, they were far inferior to ordinary Dharma cultivators and even more incomparable to sword cultivators. However, their physical strength was extremely strong and the hidden weapons they threw were very powerful. The caltrip in front of him was already in superior grade 5 Dharma artifact. It was definitely powerful when thrown by Perfected Lord Yuji. The distance of a few thousand feet was too short for Yuanying cultivators. Wang Daoyuan hurriedly dodged, but the caltrip still brushed past his left shoulder, leaving a deep scar. A deep wound was left behind, and there was still some spiritual energy left in it, constantly damaging his physical body. He did not have time to heal his injuries as the flames spewed out by the cauldron had already enveloped him. The flames released by a grade 6 Dharma artifact were extremely powerful. Wang Daoyuan released Yinglong from Yuanying's glabella and let it devour the flames. Unfortunately, the flames were too strong and Yinglong could not absorb too much. It was useless to use the true fire of Scarlet Yang to consume it. Seeing Wang Daoyuan being burned by the flames, perfected Lord Yuji mocked. Little thief, call out the golden book and I might be able to save your life. Wang Daoyuan ignored him and used an escape technique to escape 1,000 feet away from the cauldron. The cauldron no longer spewed out flames, but the flames on his body did not extinguish either. If this continued, he would only be burned alive. He could only use his last resort and take out the spiritual pearl from his sea of consciousness. As soon as it left Wang Daoyuan's sea of consciousness, it began to absorb spirit energy crazily. The spirit energy in the entire Ziwei Hall was rapidly gathering towards the spiritual pearl. The flames on Wang Daoyuan's body were also absorbed by the spiritual pearl. Since he was already exposed, he might as well take the cauldron as well. He came to the side of the cauldron and flames spewed out of it again. Unfortunately, the flames were absorbed by the spiritual pearl as soon as they left the cauldron. The entire cauldron began to shake violently and slowly left the ground. At this time it was time for the secret realm to close. Everyone's bodies were flashing with a dazzling white light. Wang Daoyuan also clearly felt a repulsive force. The flames within the cauldron churned, and the entire cauldron kept shaking, as if it wanted to break free from the suction force of the spirit pearl. The power of the spiritual pearl was so strong that Reverend Yuji and the other three were stunned. They no longer dared to attack Wang Daoyuan. The cauldrons that they were unable to move were all sucked off the ground by the spiritual beads. If they were to become the target of the spirit pearl, they would not be able to resist at all. The shaking of the cauldron gradually weakened, and it was no longer able to resist the suppression of the spiritual pearl. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the crafting room. At that moment, the repulsive force was already extremely strong. Wang Daoyuan, True Lord Yuji, and the others were unable to resist it. The sword cultivator puppet was still chasing after the four of them. On the weapon rack in the corner of the refinement room, there were still quite a number of grade 6 dermic weapons. He wanted to take away the puppet and the magic tool, but unfortunately time did not allow him to do so. The 7 Stars Heavenly Palace must have been a large force in the past. Such a large force would definitely not only have the legacy of crafting. In addition to cultivation techniques, there would definitely be many inheritances of pills, talismans, formations, and spirit plant farmers. Unfortunately, he could not bring out so many inheritances. The next time he came here would be 500 years later. He did not know if he would still be interested in the inheritances of the 7 Stars Heavenly Palace by then. At that moment, his whole body was floating in the air. Even the flight restriction array was useless. He hurriedly put the spirit pearl back into his sea of consciousness, lest it be separated from him when he was expelled from the secret realm. Suddenly, a light screen appeared above the stone room. It was exactly the same as the light screen at the entrance of the secret realm. Wang Daoyuan and the other 4 people were sucked into the light screen. Then there was darkness in front of them. After an unknown period of time, the scene in front of them began to brighten. At that moment, Wang Daoyuan was in the middle of the sea. He was surrounded by seawater. Every time the 7 Stars secret realm closed, it would teleport the cultivators who entered to the sea around Hidden Yuan Island. This should be the vicinity of Hidden Yuan Island, but he did not know where it was. He released his clone Liao Yang from the space of the spirit pearl and let him fly high into the sky to check the surrounding situation. Hidden Yuan Island had a radius of tens of thousands of miles, so it was naturally very conspicuous. Wang Daoyuan confirmed that he was more than 50,000 miles southwest of Hidden Yuan Island, which was relatively safe. The large islands in the Sea of 7 Stars were all in the east. He fled all the way to the west and there were no large islands along the way. He took out the repaired 4th grade flying boat from the space of the spirit pearl and flew all the way to the west. This time his injuries were not light. His internal organs were injured by the sword cultivator puppet. His shoulder was hit by Supreme Yuji's iron caltrops, and he was burned by the flames in the big cauldron. He let his clone Liao Yang control the flying boat while he healed in the cabin. Supreme Yuji was a metal-attributed body-tempering cultivator. The remaining spiritual energy in Wang Daoyuan's wounds was also metal-attributed. He drew out a wisp of tiny golden flame from his Yuanying and completely burned the metal-attributed spiritual energy. Then he used the Tsang Dragon Pearl to heal his injuries. The Tsang Dragon Pearl was very effective in treating external injuries. The wounds and burns caused by the iron caltrops quickly recovered. His internal injuries were not serious to begin with, so it was not a big problem now. In the space of the spirit pearl, his clone had already finished checking his harvest. The spiritual plants that he had obtained before had also grown after staying in the space for such a long time. The branches of the nascent soul fruit had also grown roots and new buds. The core fragmentation grass, nascent cultivating pill, and 9 death resurrection pill herbs were planted in the newly appeared spiritual fields. Of course, these things took a long time to grow, with the longest taking about 3,000 to 4,000 years to mature. The nascent soul fruit needed 5,000 years from germination to flowering. It also needed 5,000 years from flowering to ripening. He had obtained the branches, so it was hard to say when they would bloom. The golden hepta essence found in the secret realm had now merged with the gold spiritual vein. His clone also flipped through the inheritance of the Beiyuan sword saint. This golden book was called the Beiyuan record. The Beiyuan record was divided into 2 parts. One part was the inheritance of the Beiyuan sword saint. The content of this inheritance was very simple. It did not record as many things as the one he had obtained in Beiyuan. There was no content about sword cultivation spells. Of course, Wang Daoyuan did not need this content. With the sword energy transformation technique, he could create his own spells on the basis of existing spells. The inheritance of the Beiyuan sword saint was divided into 3 parts. They were the sword intent, the technique, and the method to refine the natal dharma artifact. The sword intent part was essentially the same as the incomplete golden book he had obtained from the Beiyuan sword sect. It was more specific about comprehending the sword intent of the Beiyuan sword saint, the method to merge the sword intent, and the method to improve the sword intent. This technique was a non-elemental sword cultivation technique. It complemented the sword intent of the Beiyuan sword saint and could be cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm. The Earth Immortal realm was the highest cultivation realm in the Qianyuan realm. One could ascend to the Immortal realm at any time. The Beiyuan sword saint had cultivated to the Earth Immortal realm. However, he did not ascend because he was resisting the demons. According to the records of the Beiyuan record, below the Earth Immortal realm was the Mahayana realm. Only at this realm could one be called a mighty figure. Below the Mahayana realm was the Soul Formation realm. The highest level of the Beiyuan sword saint was the Universal Restoration technique. It fused all one's strength into one's sword. It could be said that it fused all the spells into one's sword. To reach this level, one had to cultivate the technique in the Beiyuan record. Behind this technique, there was a method to reach the Universal Restoration technique. It was the Dharma Artifact Refining technique. This Dharma Artifact Refining technique was called the 3 Treasures Artifact Nurturing technique. The 3 treasures of a person referred to the essence, qi, and spirit. All the power of a person was derived from the essence, qi, and spirit. One used the essence, qi, and spirit to nurture the Dharma artifact and finally fused it into the Dharma artifact. When one reached that step, one would naturally be able to use the Dharma artifact to unleash its full power during a battle. The 3 Treasures Artifact Nurturing technique did not nurture an actual Dharma artifact. Instead, it was more like a special artifact spirit. This artifact spirit could fuse with any Dharma artifact and unleash a certain amount of power. Different Dharma artifacts fused with the artifact spirit would unleash different powers. In order to unleash the strongest power, it was best to fuse it with the sword. Chapter 751. Although the weapon spirit cultivated by the 3 Treasures Tool Nurturing technique did not have a physical body, it could not be without a physical body in the beginning. The tool nurturing technique also required a prototype of a magic tool to nurture. It required the essence of all kinds of refining materials to be injected into the prototype. Only when the weapon spirit was formed could the prototype be discarded. The requirements for the prototype were extremely high. It needed to be able to carry a large amount of spiritual power and the essence of refining materials. After all, to nurture a weapon spirit, it also required a large amount of spiritual power, divine sense, and various other kinds of energy. The amount of spiritual power that such a spiritual object could carry was at least not less than the total amount of spiritual power of 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones. Beiyuan Sword Immortal was quite considerate. He listed many useful spiritual objects. For example, high-grade 6th Order Pseudo-Dragon Pearl, high-grade 5th Order Spirit Spring Pearl, and so on. These things were not easy to find. Any one of them could only be found by chance. At the very least it had to be a mid-grade 5th level 5 elements essence. Wang Daoyuan really did have the earth essence and the heptagold essence. The heptagold essence was high-grade 5th order and was completely sufficient. The earth essence was only low-grade 5th order and needed to grow for a few more years before it could be used. As for the other supplementary materials, it depended on the characteristics of the refiner. Since the Guiyuan sword intent could accommodate all things, it naturally had a strong tolerance. The techniques in the Guiyuan record were non-elemental. The Tai sword in Beiyuan was of the metal attribute. In addition to the inheritance of Guiyuan sword Immortal, the Guiyuan record also contained a message from the Master of the Seven Stars Heavenly Palace. According to the Guiyuan record, the Seven Stars secret realm was a territory controlled by a large force, the Xinlian school. The Xinlian school's sect master, Supreme Divinity Xianxia, was a good friend of Guiyuan sword Immortal for many years. Guiyuan sword Immortal's 3 treasures tool nurturing technique was also taught by Supreme Divinity Xianxia. Supreme Divinity was a title that only the best among the Mahayana cultivators could have. Supreme Divinity Xianxian's cultivation was only a step away from the Earth Immortal realm. More than 70,000 years ago, during the most intense war between humans and demons, Guiyuan sword Immortal's second disciple brought the Guiyuan record and the Guiyuan sword diagram to Hidden Essence Island. He entrusted the inheritance to Supreme God Xianxia and asked him to refine an 8th order origin returning sword. This sword was naturally meant for sword Immortal Guiyuan. Even in that era, sword Immortal Guiyuan was one of the top combatants of the human race. The level 8 origin returning sword greatly increased his battle prowess. It was also of great significance to enhance the strength of the human race. The Supreme God Xianxia naturally did not decline. He took out the level 8 mixed divine iron that was the trump card of the Xinlian school and forged a sword of Guiyuan. After the forging was completed, the divine god Xianxia personally sent the Guiyuan sword to the front line of the ancient Dragon Mountain's defense against the demons. After that there were no records. The supreme god Xianxia probably did not return to the seven-star secret realm. The supreme god Xianxia's records also mentioned the forging process of the sword of Guiyuan. Before officially forging the Guiyuan sword, he also used the 6th grade mixed yuan refined iron to forge a sword embryo. He wanted to forge a 7th grade sword of Guiyuan for the second disciple of sword Immortal Guiyuan. It could be considered as practice. However, the situation at ancient Dragon Mountain was not good. The supreme god Xianxia did not have enough time to practice. This 7th level lower grade origin returning sword had only been refined into a sword embryo. He had to seize the time to forge the 8th grade sword of Guiyuan. This sword embryo was nurtured in a crafting cauldron, which was placed above the fire eye. He planned to continue forging after returning the sword to sword Immortal Guiyuan. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan was pleasantly surprised. The crafting cauldron in the crafting room was now in the space of the spiritual pearl. Even if it was just a sword embryo, it was not comparable to a 5th grade magic weapon. It just so happened that he did not have a 5th grade magic weapon on hand. If he could take out this sword embryo, it could be considered as an additional trump card. Moreover, this sword embryo was made of mixed yuan refined iron, which was a non-elemental magic weapon. It was very suitable for cultivators with 5 spirit roots. He also had the sword intent of Guiyuan. Using this sword embryo, he could still exert a lot of power. In the secret realm, he only took away the crafting cauldron at the end. There was still a flame in the cauldron, but he did not have time to check it. The space of the spiritual pearl was his territory. As his cultivation level increased, his control over the spiritual pearl became stronger. After the crafting cauldron was put in, the fire was still relatively strong. Wang Daoyuan placed it on the newly added land at the edge of the spiritual pearl and sucked away all the surrounding spirit energy. No matter how strong this magic weapon was, it could not be strong without the nourishment of spirit energy for a long time. He probed into the space of the spiritual pearl with his divine consciousness to check on the crafting cauldron. This guy had a bad temper. As soon as he probed with his divine consciousness, flames spewed out from the cauldron. Wang Daoyuan didn't bother with it anymore. He didn't need to fight anyone now. He first put this crafting cauldron in the space of the spiritual pearl and waited for its fire to dissipate. Of the 7 golden books obtained from the crafting room, 5 of them were ordinary crafting inheritances. The content was from the 1st to the 8th grade of crafting. However, the content was not complete. There were only 4th, 5th, and 8th grade of crafting inheritances. In addition, there were also some special weapon patterns recorded. The missing things should have been taken away by others. It did not matter if a part was incomplete. The treasure cauldron lineage of the Divine Weapon Pavilion had a 6th grade inheritance. The 7th grade was at the Mahayana level. When it was necessary to use the 7th grade crafting technique, it should be a Mahayana cultivator. There was no upper limit to the lifespan of a Mahayana cultivator. However, after living for more than 10,000 years, there might be a tribulation of 3 decline of essence, chi and spirit. With a long lifespan, there was enough time to find inheritances. With the 6th and 8th grade inheritances in hand, it was not a problem to spend some time to deduce. The remaining 2 books were also crafting inheritances. It was the inheritance of the puppet technique. This puppet technique was called the Divine Puppet Technique, and was also one of the special skills of the Xianlian school. These 2 books were not complete, but fortunately they were more coherent and recorded the refining method from the 1st to the 5th grade of the puppet technique. According to the general outline, this puppet technique should be able to reach the 7th grade. The remaining parts should have been snatched away. Having these gains already made Wang Daoyuan overjoyed beyond his expectations. Puppets needed something similar to a soul to control. It also needed special materials to carry this soul-like thing. Wang Daoyuan did not lack these special materials. The yellow spring willow in the spirit pearls space had been planted for many years. The earliest yellow spring willow was already a superior grade stage 4 spiritual wood. Later, in the yellow spring mystic realm, he dug up the yellow spring willow's stump. After this stump was planted, many side branches grew out. It was now a middle grade stage 4 spiritual plant. No matter how many puppets he refined, he did not lack special materials. However, he did not have enough ordinary stage 5 crafting materials. In the Sea of 7 Stars, stage 5 crafting materials were not rare. It was not a problem to go out and find them. Wang Daoyuan had offended all the major factions in the mystic realm. There would probably be a warrant for his arrest soon. Moreover, it would be jointly issued by the 7 Stars Alliance, the Blood Shark and the Black Ice Island. At this time he should find a hidden place to stay. It would not be too late to hide for a few years and wait for the outside world to pass before coming out again. The flying boat flew all the way west for more than 500,000 kilometers. Because he was fast, he did not go to the various islands to resupply. Therefore, he did not encounter any pursuers. 500,000 kilometers west of Hidden Yuan Island was the edge of the 7-star ocean's immortal cultivation world. The blood shark pirates would not extend their hands here. The only threats here were stage 5 demonic beasts and rogue cultivators who were not afraid of death. He changed direction and flew southwest. In the face of an imminent warrant, hiding in the crater of Skyfire Island was not safe. A place where there were no cultivators at all was the safest. His target was the small volcanic island with a teleportation formation 1 million kilometers west of the Sea of 7 Stars. There were no resources there and the spirit chi was relatively thin. It was surrounded by the vast sea and had no value. Naturally, no cultivators were willing to go there. Half a month later, he arrived at this nameless volcanic island without any surprises or dangers. He entered the stone room where the teleportation formation was, set up a formation, sealed the entrance and went into seclusion in this stone room. The most important thing was to solve the problem of cultivation techniques. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.